Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. We're about to start. Assalamu alaikum. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beaconhouse in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, and their partner Tech Valley, and titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, Interwood, Franklin Covey, and Leader in Me. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answers. The next session is an engrossing panel discussion on the topic Stand Up, Speak Out, Defeating Bullying Together, and the moderator is Ms. Sofia Kasuri. Ms. Sofia Qasim Kasuri is the director of the Early Years, a leading child development center in Lahore, as well as master franchisee for US-based Jimbori Play and Music for both Pakistan and Belgium. Having been involved in early childhood development for the past 17 years, initially as founder and director of the Early Years, and later as the project director of Jimbori Play and Learn, Ms. Sofia Kasuri has paved the way for a better understanding of the importance of early childhood education in Pakistan. As director of Jimbori Play and Learn, she is involved with the implementation and strategic development of the franchise, as well as teacher education and curriculum development. Ms. Kasuri's mission is to create greater awareness of how children's experiences in the first 5 years shape their social, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral frameworks, often for their entire lives. She has received the award for Women of Inspiration as a trendsetter educationist of Pakistan. She has also selected for a Wonder Woman Award by the National Hero Foundation, an organization that recognizes and honors exceptional Pakistani women. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to invite Ms. Sofia Qasim Kasuri on stage.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on our panel, Stand Up, Speak Out, Defeat Bullying Together. I would like to welcome our first speaker, Khatija Bakhtiar. She is the CEO and founder of Teach for Pakistan, an organization addressing educational inequity. It now has 160 fellows, teaching 12,000 plus students in rural areas around Islamabad. She holds a Master of Public Policy from UC Berkeley, is a Fulbright scholar, and has worked with organizations like UN Women. Khatija also contributes to various boards and advisory groups, including National Education Foundation and Teach for All's Network Advisory Committee. Thank you. Next, we have Muriel Summers. Muriel is an award-winning principal teacher, best-selling co-author, and global ambassador for Franklin Covey's Education's Leader in Me. For more than 2 decades, Muriel was at the helm of AB Com's Elementary. The highly diverse and award-winning school carries the honor of being the original Leader in Me school. She presents in international and local educational conferences on topics such as reinventing school leadership from the inside out, inclusive approaches to transforming school culture, leading with the heart of school leadership, and finding your voice as a school leader. Meet. William McIntyre is the Senior VP of Franklin Covey Education and International GM. He oversees global initiatives, including a successful program teaching life skills in Japan. Bill has expanded Leader in Me schools to over 3,200 schools worldwide, focusing on transforming education through leadership principles. He has an extensive experience in intercultural communications, worked in publishing and advertising, and is an engaging Franklin Covey program trainer. He holds a master's degree in organizational management. Please welcome William. Next, we have Ms. Rania Amaira. She is the principal of Beaconhouse AI Khalid School in the UAE. She holds multiple leadership degrees from UK and UAE universities, including a Master's of Education in Leadership and Management with distinction. Rania also obtained a second master's degree in business administration with distinction from the University of Bedfordshire. She holds the National Professional Qualification of Headship from University College London, ensuring compliance with UAE licensing requirements. Rania has extensive experience in educational leadership and school management, facilitating improvement and excellence in multiple schools. Thank you so much for being here. And we can begin our discussion. I will ask the question, and I would like all of you to give your opinions through your experience about what we can do. So when we talk about bullying, previously, bullying was limited to social interactions in school or at family gatherings. But now, because of social media, there's a lot of talk about cyberbullying. So we can start with Khatija. If you can please talk about what you see the difference between the two is and what we can do to tackle.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophia. I think many of the same root causes, right? Because I think in trying to address bullying, we first need to understand where does it come from. And when we really look at what is happening around the ecosystem of the child or the adult who is doing the bullying, and the ecosystem of the child that is on the receiving end of that bullying, I think we see that many things stay the same, whether it is in person or in social media. Now, of course, on social media, the bullying, when you can be anonymous, right? It's so much easier to say the even nastier thing that was coming to mind, but you held back because of some bound, some basic social decency that holds you, and that kind of also goes away. But the way that I've come to understand this, working with kids over the last so many years, is ultimately it comes down to power, and the person who is doing the bullying is often trying to gain some power over others who they feel like they can, right? And I think that's at the root of a lot of the bullying that we see. And that to me leads to the question of, if we're really going to address bullying and get to a place where we can be more empathetic and create safer spaces, whether they're in schools, whether they're in homes, or whether they are on social media, then we really have to get to the root cause of why are our kids feeling so powerless? What is really happening? And how can we help all our children develop healthier forms of communicating whatever pain or frustration they may be dealing with and they may be coping with?
Okay. So what for you is the solution?
Wow, that's a really big question.
When children feel powerless, what is it that we as educators or as parents, what is the role that we should be playing?
I think it is the very, very difficult thing that educators have to do. And I think it also becomes very difficult for parents, even though this is your child, to really be able to stop whatever is coming up for ourselves when a child is acting out, stop our own anger and just ask what may be happening here. Why is this child behaving so poorly? And whether that is anger directed at an adult, but more often than not, that anger is directed at somebody who that child thinks is even less powerful than that child is feeling in the moment, right? So I think being able to pause our internal dialogue and being able to be with our children in those moments, right, I think is going to be key to try and prevent bullying. I think the second thing that's really, really important is really being able to unpack in conversation with all of our kids what are our identities? What are the many identities that we walk into a school or a classroom with, right? When we're going to engage with students who may be very different from us. These are social identities, my religion, my ethnicity, my beliefs, my gender, but also personal identities. What are the kind of clothes that I wear, right? Maybe I have a disability or not, right? And I think really being able to unpack that with kids and being able to help them feel safe about their identities, that's, I think, key to ensuring that they then will channel that kindness outwards towards other kids who may be very different from them. So I think it starts there.
Muriel?
Well, I would so agree with what Khadijah has said. I would also add to what she said by saying that getting to the root cause of why a child is behaving or a child is bullying is really at the very root of what we need to do. As a principal for over 43 years, I know firsthand that when children are hurting, they tend to want to hurt others. And so helping the child who is hurting, getting to the root cause of what is going on, and getting them the help and support that they need. Often children react because of something that is hurting within inside of them. And so addressing that, I think, is critical to addressing the whole need behind bullying.
So when a child is bullying, a child is being bullied. So we are talking about addressing the root cause of the child who is being the bully, but what about the child who's taking it?
Yeah.
What are the possible root causes there?
Yeah, I think as educators, we need to really focus on the culture that we're creating in our school. First of all, a culture of trust, a culture of love, a culture of knowing what is right versus what is wrong. And I think we have to point those things out to our children. This is not how we treat one another. We were having a conversation earlier, and we talked about when you do create a culture like this, there will be other children who will stand up for those who are being bullied. There will be children who will have the courage to say to another student, this is not right. Please don't do this. And in my 43 years, I have seen that when we focus on building a culture that says, no, this is not right, this is not how we treat one another, then you don't have it as much. And so I would say our role is to create this culture of just caring for one another and knowing the difference between right and wrong. And children need a toolkit, if you will, to help navigate, to know that's not right, or to know that they need to have the courage to stand up for someone else when they see that happening.
Thank you. William?
Yeah, I would love to build on something Muriel just said. Recall a partial quote from the poet Walt Whitman, and he said, "A child went forth every day, and what he saw, he became." And so I think we need to understand, what are these children who are bullying and being bullying, what are they seeing? And this goes back to what is happening in their homes and their families. As Muriel, you just kind of alluded to, a bully is usually being bullied by someone else. And often that bullying may be coming from parents or other children or siblings or somewhere. So in the schools that we work with around the world, we really focus on building that culture that Muriel talked about, but also building that relationship with parents. Muriel tells a story in A.B. Combs, and I don't know if you got to see her session, but it was wonderful. But she required every one of her teachers to visit with every family. Is that right? During the year. And so the teacher of these students will know the family situation, know the background, understand is there family issues going on. This will allow the teacher to understand better how to deal with a student either being bullied or doing the bullying. And so creating this culture, this communication and partnership with parents, I think is crucial in our schools today.
Rania.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you first, Sophia, for giving me this chance to be part of this lovely panel. It's a very insightful kind of discussion we're having here because it's a major problem that we are facing on a regular basis. I believe that bullying is bullying, regardless the platform, regardless the approach. Either it's cyberbullying or the face-to-face that our children they are facing on their regular school days or as in their social life. Unfortunately, the impact that it leaves on the victim is the same. Most of the time, they are demoralized, they are unhappy, sad. It impacts their sleeping habits, maybe impacts their social relationship with their other peers, and all of the other consequences that's related to this. What makes the cyberbullying a little bit more damaging is what exactly Khadija mentioned, is that it is the anonymous, the ambiguity. You're not very sure who you are talking to. That kind of causes the maybe the consequences to be taken by the parents or the teachers in schools more harder at a certain point. The other main challenge here is that cyberbullying, it includes continuity sometimes. You don't know who exactly saw the post or the message that have been abusing the victim. You're not sure if you after deleting this message, if there was a chance to pop up again and be shown to other people. If someone just screenshot, took a screenshot for that specific message, it might be go viral in the social media. But I like what also my other panelists mentioned here. When we are dealing with any problem, we really need to look into the roots, the main causes, because every cause will have an effect. The impact comes from the main causes. And I was sharing earlier this early morning with you, Sophia, that sometimes it is more than just a social or emotional type of problems that these children they have. Most of the time, the bully students, they are the one who have anger management issues. They are impulsive. They are reactive. They react without thinking. And interestingly, these might be symptoms of specific disabilities. Why I'm saying that? Because I face that as a school principal sometimes. And in specific, I'm not a psychologist here, but in specific, these are kind of common traits with the ADHD, for instance. So that child might needs more than a social mentoring or coaching, might need some medical kind of a treatment that might impact his behavior, and which happened in many cases in a school context. In addition, definitely to other reasons that might come from house or the relationship with the family that we need to dig into in order to figure out where the problem is so we can provide a solution on the long run.
So, taking from that, if we talk about early intervention, for example, how important is it for parents and educators? Are there any common characteristics between a bully or a child who's being bullied that can be identified earlier? There's certain personality traits, for example, that we as educators can see that this child has the potential of being a bully or being bullied. So we talk about in early childhood, especially about how confidence building is very, very important in the first 5 years of a child, and how we have to build up on that. And a happy child is a happy adult. Now, again, talking about those characteristics, not just about confidence, but also about understanding personalities of different children and trying to identify at an earlier stage what we can do to make them kinder, to make them more empathetic. What are the things we can do, and what are the different characteristics in a child? Like you said, a lot of times if they have anger management issues, they're frustrated because they might have ADHD and stuff. So what are the commonalities for these children? Are there any?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Muriel.
You know, I think we just have to know our students so well that when we notice certain behaviors, our radar goes up. Yes, there are children that are impulsive, and we have to redirect that behavior. They may have, as Rania said, they may have a disability, and so we just need to know our children's stories. We need to know their backgrounds. The characteristics, I think, is hurt, sadness, anger, and children respond when a need is not being met. And I look for that. I look when a child is exhibiting those behaviors, what need is not being addressed, and then attempt to address that need. So to categorize these are bullying behaviors, we know what they are. And often it just requires a conversation with the student to tell them that's not what you should be doing. And really help the child to learn empathy by saying, when you said this is how you made this person feel. And often I would have the two children dialogue together if it was the first time that this had ever happened. But what I've come to realize, and my experience tells me, that often it's just redirecting a child once and the behavior extinguishes itself. However, if it continues, you know that there is a deeper cause that needs to be addressed. So that would be my goal, to recognize when it's happening and try to extinguish it as soon as possible and get the child the help they need.
Yeah, I would add, in what we've done in the Leader in Me schools, the teachers communicate students' worth and potential so clearly they're inspired to see it in themselves. And this issue of confidence is huge. I think children who lack confidence, they're the loner. Teachers can sense that and see that. And those are the students that are often targeted for bullying. So what I think we ought to be doing, we're doing in a lot of schools, is help that child break out of that. Help them, give them an opportunity to build their confidence. You know, we believe in giving every child in the school a leadership role and let them show what they can do. And so a teacher needs to help the student discover their gifts and talents and give them opportunities to use it. And that would help them gain more confidence, which then I think could help the potential victims of bullying.
And could I add to that there's research that shows that the number one thing that children of all ages that are able to articulate this, the number one thing they need and want is to feel that they belong. And to add to what Bill just said, when they have a role and responsibility and a reason to wake up every morning to go to school, we're halfway there. But the sense of belonging, and often children who bully do not feel they belong.
I like what the other day when we were discussing this, Muriel, you told me that everyone has a second chance. And specifically, I want to maybe use this a phrase when we're dealing with the bullies, because most of the time we are very empathetic towards the victimized. However, at the end, we're dealing, especially at the lower ages, we're dealing with children who are going through a lot of emotional, social, cognitive changes while they are growing, maybe hormonal as well at a certain point. So that part should always be there as parents, as educators, that this can be fixed, this can be tackled the proper way, and there's always a second chance for improvement.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just want to add a perspective. So the children we work with, we're working with government schools, and about 95% of our school-going population is going to either a government school or a low-cost private school or a non-profit school. This is the bottom of the pyramid. And what is happening there? And I think your question is so interesting in that context, Sophia, because what it made me think was being able to identify individual behaviors. I mean, what's needed as a precursor to that is the kind of whole school culture that we were talking about earlier. And the environments that we're dealing with, I think the vast majority of our students are being treated so poorly in our education systems, right? In our mass education systems, it strips away humanity and dignity from the child who is being bullied, but also the bully themselves, right? I have this vivid memory of walking into a boys' school and walking by classroom after classroom, watching a teacher hit children because a boy came into the school with a ponytail, and teachers bullying other teachers, and those things become so pervasive as part of the school culture. But I think the idea of student leadership is a key one, because what we've seen, how do you create dramatic change in those instances? It's no longer just the adults whose leadership and wisdom one can rely on to take a culture like that and transform it. You have to go to the kids. It has to start with the kids almost. And that's what we've seen in a number of our students, is what's happening when children within classrooms and across classrooms are engaging in dialogue and being able to be honest about the pain that all of them have experienced, right? Everybody can relate to both experiencing and inflicting pain on another. And that is what joins them in empathy. And then being able to, then pushing back on their school management and saying, this culture is no longer acceptable. And going from bullying doesn't work for us to corporal punishment doesn't work for us, right? And so I think that's the thing that gives me a lot of hope, is how much potential there is in our kids for them to rise and change this for themselves.
So we were talking about this earlier, and we were all a little confused about the millennials and the boomers and the Gen Z and what begins when. So please excuse us if I'm wrong. But taking from what you said, Khatija, as parents, a lot of what we talk to our children about, whether it's our students or our own children, comes from experiences we've had which we thought were right or wrong with us. And that's how we teach our children. But like you said, certain things don't work for us anymore. Bullying doesn't work for us as a parent or for my child. Corporal punishment doesn't work for us anymore. But there is still a culture of excusing adult behavior. If a teacher says something or behaves a certain way, and the child will complain, and we will say to the children, it's a school culture, or teachers do this, and it's absolutely okay. What is the role of the parent? Muriel, you talked earlier about partnership between the parent and educator. How important is it that should parents be standing up for their child, or should they be partnering with the school in making the environment better for the children? What is the difference, if there is one?
Yeah. I mean, and I think if we go back to the original understanding that a lot of these bullying behaviors come from the ecosystem that a child is in, and if we take that as a point of acceptance as a starting point, then that ecosystem doesn't, of course, end at the school. The parents and the culture that they see in their homes and what they experience in their homes, and how adults treat each other and the kids is just as important. So I think, in my mind, there's absolutely no doubt parents have to enter this conversation as partners with educators, and that's regardless of socioeconomic background, right? Regardless of the strata of school that we're talking about.
Okay.
I think the question is, how do you diffuse that situation? Because most parents, if their child is accused of being a bully, they're going to come in and they're going to defend their child. That's the natural reaction, not the proper reaction, but the natural reaction. And so how can we help teachers understand how to talk to the parents, right? To be able to diffuse a potential, confrontation with the parents and help the parent understand that we're partners.
And Bill, that is a great point. And it was years before I learned this. and I wish I could go back and have a do-over. But I learned from our work that people respond out of two emotions. We respond out of fear, and we respond out of love. And so it's our role as educators to take the high road, if you will, when a parent comes and is somewhat confrontational, to just understand that paradigm of they're afraid of something. They're afraid that they don't know how perhaps to handle the news you've just given them. Or they love something so deeply that they also don't know how to articulate what to do. So I think it's our responsibility, just as Bill said, to create a culture where we're educating every person in our building that communicates with the parent to know that understanding of fear and love, and to also have the skill set to diffuse a difficult situation, to get to the root cause of what's really going on. Because if a child is bullying, more than likely they've seen someone else bully, and unfortunately it might be someone in their family that's doing that. So the educating the whole family, the whole child, the family, I think is the key to solving a lot of our problems that we have in education.
Okay.
I think it also has to do that we parents are human beings, and it's a learning curve for all of us. We're learning with our children, and we're developing as they are growing. We are growing. And I'm going to quote again Simon Sinek. We talked about it just a couple of hours before while we were discussing this session. I was watching a very nice video for Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is an author who writes in leadership. And he mentioned a very interesting statement about the major characteristics of millennial groups, speaking about millennials. And he identified millennial generation. Any person was born after 1984. Please raise your hand if you are born after 1984. Okay, here we go. So, okay, I hopefully that's genuine, guys, but this is exactly what he was saying about this specific generation. He mentioned this generation, ironically, he was talking about it from a business perspective, by the way. He said, these people are the most hard people to manage.
You are.
This was a trick question.
Let me tell you why. He said that these people are the most hard people to manage because, number one, they are anti-social people. This is due to many circumstances happened in their lives due to the social media that came up and, being connected to gadgets and all of these things. They are the least people who can manage stress, by the way. He also mentioned that they cannot manage stress. He also mentioned a very interesting statement about avoiding confrontations. And ironically, he said that these people, they would rather go to their bosses, resign from the job, rather than going and confronting their boss and telling him that, oh, I'm unhappy with the salary that you're giving me or the circumstances of the job. So this is what, as educators, principals, people on ground dealing with your children, we are also dealing with this type of parents on ground. So you can imagine what we are going through. We want to, in a way or another, educate you about, what are we trying to educate our children about? Thank you.
So, taking from what you said, that they're afraid of confrontation, they're not talking about what bothers them, what the root cause is. That's a very common pattern in children as well, right? Children often, when they are being bullied, are not telling anyone about it, especially when it comes to cyberbullying, because a lot of the times you're not able to identify who the bully is. They can do it under cover, they can do it with anonymity. How are we as educators, because often the child who's being bullied, even cyberbullying, is coming from a lot of the core group that might actually be in school. How are we supposed to identify that behavior and change it? How are we supposed to help that child?
Sorry, which child do you mean? The child.
The child who's being bullied
Who's being
online, and we as educators cannot identify who the bully is. How do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is such a hard question. And I think just also a huge shout out to all the school-based educators and teachers on the panel and in the room, because it's such a difficult job. I think ultimately, I think this draws on a lot of research and what we've learned over the years about how to help children cope with any kinds of abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, or violence that's being done against them. I use those principles to say I think it's about really whole child development, right? That's why this approach that's almost become, an overused term in some ways, but that's why it matters so much. If we invest in the right ways and early on in the child's sense of self, in their ability to be confident, in their ability to know how they're feeling and be able to express it, in their ability to be able to think critically, and in their confidence that when you go and talk to an adult, right, whether that's a parent or an educator, there is safety for you and responsiveness for you. If we do that, then I think we can worry less about having to identify what is happening with a particular child, because that child is then more able to protect and defend themselves and stand up for themselves, because we will not be able to be with them all the time, right? No matter how much we want to helicopter as parents or educators, we can't. And so that would be my answer, but of course I would defer to the very knowledgeable panelists.
I think also it has to do, especially if we're talking about cyberbullying, it has to do about raising the awareness when it comes dealing with the social media and all of these digital platforms. For a fact, we know that all of these platforms, they have a specific guidance, social guidance, for parents even to ask some specific questions if they want to know how to deal with the safety related issues while using this platform. There are also some kind of a reporting system. We need to teach our children whenever they come across something like bullying, abusing online, how to report it to the provider of the service. Unblocking, unfriending, that we always have that kind of like, just to stay away and make sure that you're not communicate to strangers online. I believe these type of communications are very important. Parents must do that. And this also, Sophia, you've been saying that unfortunately most of us, we may avoid because sometimes the regulations and that safety tip things, it's kind of a very lengthy. We just go through it and we tick accept and let it go. Maybe we need to take care about all of these things more and discuss these online safety things with our students and with our children.
I think there certainly could be more done as educators to possibly even work with the parents again, in helping the parents to understand the impact of social media and how children are using it, and also talking to the children, letting them know that if this happens to you, it's okay to come and talk to us. I mean, we just need to be open with our children, I think, and I think in this whole discussion as well, I remember a quote that Sean mentioned in his presentation today. For 1,000 people hacking at the leaves, only one is hitting the roots. And we need to focus on the roots in our school. What is creating that culture, as you were saying? And if you can create a positive culture where kids want to go to school, they care about each other, they think win-win, I think bullying will go down. But if it happens, they will, as Muriel said, or they will defend each other. So I think it really comes down to how do we focus on educators again? I know we've repeated this, of creating that culture in the school. One last thing quickly. Our family sends little videos to each other that they see online and we watch them. I just happened to get one yesterday and I was watching it. And it was a video of a mother pushing a baby carriage and the mother had fell down and the cage carried away and she couldn't get up. And somebody had to come and save the baby. And the comments on that, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a funny video, but the comments on it were criticizing the mother because she was overweight and she couldn't get up. And I thought, there should be protections in there on that social media platform to prevent that, or when that is flagged, right? And our kids are seeing this, and people are saying these things to our children online. And so I think there's a lot more that social media could do to put protections in. that when those kind of comments are made, it's flagged. But I think education, kids need to know what to do when it happens. And I think we just need to talk to them because they're really smart. Kids are smarter than we think, and they're more mature than we think. And they need to know that we trust them as adults and they can talk to us.
To add to that, being proactive and having conversations before any of this ensues is so critical. Giving examples of what is not correct versus what is a correct way to respond. The systems and structures we can put in our schools are opportunities to have conversations about these things with our students. I think we get so caught up in the thick of thin things in education. We have to give attention to this. We have to allow time to have these conversations so that when it does occur, the child can reflect back on, oh, I remember that this was shared or an example of this was shared, and that's not the right thing to do, or this is the right thing to do in that situation. So creating a system, we have morning meetings. We devote the first 30 minutes of every day just bringing the children around us to talk about certain issues. And I have found that just that 30-minute investment every day creates a climate of love and trust and empathy and understanding. Because just as the example Bill gave, if a child sees their parent laughing about what was posted, then they're going to think that's okay. We have to teach them that is not okay, and this is why it isn't okay.
I'm sorry, one last comment to that. And Sean talked about the most important thing that predicts a successful school, even academically, is the relationship between the teachers in the school, that culture of the teachers. And so as educators, we need to make sure that what we're doing is not, incorrect as well. We need to model the exact behavior we expect from our students. And sometimes, as you mentioned, Sophia, as adults, adults do it and, oh, it's okay, we laugh it off, but we expect the kids not to do it. Frankly, that's hypocritical. So
sometimes I feel that we as educators, there's a lot expected from us. But in my learning, parents are the first teachers of their children. I think a lot of students do look up their teachers as role models, but they look up to their parents a lot more than they would to any educator. So like you said, Muriel, if a parent is sending that video and laughing about it, then the children don't know what is right from wrong. And when we send videos like this, is it teaching us to be more insensitive to a situation, or is it giving us a platform to voice our opinion? How does it work? Again, is it only important to give the first 30 minutes of every day to a child as an educator? Or is it also important for us as educators to bring in the parents, keep that communication going about maybe teaching them these things as well? Because we all are told parenting comes naturally, but we all learn a lot from the first child, right? And with the next one it gets slightly easier, and with the next one, but how hard or easy is it for parents to become a part of that culture in school?
I think, allow me here maybe to comment, the hardest thing in managing any organization is to change the culture. Because culture has to do with values, it has to do with the softer skills, things that are intangible. It's not as easy as 1 + 1 = 2, but it is about specific, behavior, specific approach of speaking, specific values that we are trying to instill in our students. And I talked about this in a different platform previously. We do it either intentionally or sometimes unintentionally, but it becomes our norms. It becomes the routine, the regular things that we are doing. And this is very important for the parents to do the same thing. I'm wearing both hats. I'm a mother and a school principal. So as an educator, I'm facing my students and dealing with regular kind of discussion about that. But as a mother, I feel like I'm like a parrot sometimes, and my child gets very upset. Mama, you told me this before. Can you stop telling me? And I keep repeating the same thing over and over because we don't want to go to any type of like abusive approaches. We're human. We're teaching our children to communicate. No matter how much time we need to repeat, we will keep repeating it because we are mothers and we care about our students and we want them to reach the point that you don't want me to stop, then do it, please. That should be like,
You know, one thing that we discovered with the Leader in Me schools around the world that we work with is we can create a good culture in the school over time, and we build this, and the students are using the language of proactivity and the 7 Habits language. They go home, there's a totally different environment. And so what we did early on in our interventions was we allowed the schools to hold 7 Habits training sessions for the parents so that there is a common language when they go home and when they're at school. And we found this to be extremely powerful in helping, and it helps families who may be struggling as well. Early on, we would have children go home to their parents and say, Mommy, you're not being proactive. You know, and the parents would come to the school and say, what are you teaching my kid? You know, and so this cooperation between parents and the school and training them, it's a benefit for the family. And so a family would say, I'm glad my children go to your school because you're investing in our family as well. And it's extremely powerful.
You know, every parent wants to hear that they're a good parent. And I think seeking first to understand that often for many of our parents, school was not a great experience for them. And so for us to invite them to come to school when it has such a bad memory for them takes us retraining and building trust with our families. You know, I've watched over the years that the moment I tell a parent, whether I feel, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but whether I feel they're a good parent in the moment or not, I'm going to tell them that they are. And I'm going to give a specific, genuine reason why I think they're a great parent. Because the most important thing we can do is to build that trusting relationship with our families so that they see us, and Rania had talked about this earlier today, that they see us as partners, that we're not against them, that we are there together as one unit to help their children succeed.
And I think it's such a lovely point that Muriel is making right now, and such a powerful one. And the parents that we're working with, they're parents from low-income communities, often not very educated themselves, but they care about their kids, and schools don't make them feel like that. Schools make them feel like they are less than, they don't know, they need to be given awareness and not as equal partners who are welcome to play a role in their kids' education. And every time we've seen a teacher play a different kind of role, I've seen parents stop sending their kids to work and start sending them to school instead, not pull their girls out of school after 8th grade, continue to send. And so they do all of these things, and starting to change the culture in their own homes is something that they're very, very willing to get on board with. And then one last thing I'll say very quickly. I don't know if it's Rania. Rania's comment has given me an existential crisis about my age now. So perhaps it's that, or perhaps it's because I know my niece is in the audience. But the one thing that Teach for Pakistan has taught me, when we don't know what the answer is, and I think this, right, we're talking, of course, there's lots of great insights that are coming up, but we don't, as the adults in the room, really know what the answer is. Talk to the children and talk to the young people, because in many ways, I feel like, yes, thank you. I'll stop for that. Yes, thank you. That's okay. For young people and for kids, I don't think we listen to them enough. In some ways, I realize I have to translate from the real world to digital space, because that didn't happen until I was in my late teens. But for a lot of the younger people, they know how to navigate this space 10 times better than me, right? So I wish we'd be able to involve them in these conversations, not here, I mean, but at like school level all the time, and say, how do you think we should solve for this? I think they'll have very, very good ideas.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Before we move to the question answers very quickly, We've been talking a lot about AI during this conference. I wanted your opinion on whether you guys think AI would play an important role in the future in tackling bullying, or maybe help in counseling where maybe affordability is an issue and they cannot go to a counselor and they have an online option. Do you guys see a future in working with AI?
I believe there's always a chance. You can't say that with all of the booming in technology that is happening, I could see things more even advanced happening. In what context exactly? No one have the answer for that. But maybe I told you also about this. I know for a fact in a medical level, a friend of mine, he's working with a specific artificial intelligence type of a platform that they have just created recently in Dubai. And the platform is mainly working on the diagnosis. Specific question that AI system is asking the patient when he comes to the hospital, and by finding a specific maybe keywords, specific answers lead to a specific diagnosis that the application can immediately tell the patient that this is most probably you are between this option or that option. So having said that, it might be like at a certain point we can have a specific maybe avatar doing some kind of like a counseling for our students. Although I would always question the emotional part, because that has something to do with the human. No matter how much support I'm giving you through an online approach, that human part, if it's not there, it wouldn't be that genuine. I mean, the face expression that we have, my voice tone, the comments in between that we do, it's not just a blunt, abstract comment that we're going to give to the person. That made it maybe a little bit challenging, but let's live and see. Why not?
I'm a boomer, okay, a baby boomer, so I don't even know what AI is. I'm joking. I do. But what if, I don't know if the avatar, as you mentioned, Rania, that it doesn't have that human component, but it is very intelligent. But what if through generative AI, they could identify when there are posts or comments that are bullying, and there was an automatic message where parents could have if their kids are on a certain platform, that a message would go to the parents that their children are receiving these kind of comments. Now, now somebody out there who is a programmer and a genius, you don't have to pay me any royalty, but make that happen. All right. But I think something like that is very realistic, where we could use the artificial intelligence to protect and help our children, or refer parents, the school, the teacher, whatever it is.
I would agree with everything that has been said. And as someone who is I don't even know what generation I'm in, but at 67 years old, this is all a little bit new to me, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited that the technology could perhaps provide an avenue for a lonely child to just be engaged in a conversation. Often, children are just looking for someone to talk with. Do we need to monitor that? Absolutely, we do. But I think if we can create an avatar that will make a child feel loved, and I've seen that over the airways. I've seen it. I'm just going to say it. I felt it from your mother-in-law on the first day. I felt this from. We can figure out how to make a child feel loved, whether it's that human touch or whether it's something through technology, that they're cared for, that they matter, that they belong.
Thank you.
I'll keep it short because I feel bad for people holding up the time sign. I can see them in the corner of my eye. I think like any other technology, AI will work for the bottom of the pyramid if we make it. And just like EdTech has not proven that yet, in my opinion. And so I think it depends all on what we, as the human beings behind the AI, are willing to invest in. So, yeah.
Thank you. Do we have time for question answers? Yeah. Okay. The first question: how can the application of 7 habits and Leader in Me principles assist in addressing the cyberbullying challenges that adolescents encounter?
be that
Give it a
close
try.
to Muriel. That's yours.
That's one of our.
That's
Well,
the
it's the
baby.
toolkit. The 7 habits are the toolkit. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win. I think that's what we do, is give them the toolkit to help them decide how to address. I don't mean to sound cliche-ish or anything like that, but when you create a culture where children feel loved, this often doesn't happen. It's a preventive measure, if you will, to give children an opportunity to pause and think before they act. And I think that's the most powerful gift that we can give our children, is to teach them to the stimulus and response, to stop and think before they act. And so, I could go on and on about this. I just say, love them, love them, just love them.
In this era of abundant information, what essential principles of digital ethics should schools incorporate into their curriculum to protect our children from bullying?
I think we talked about that during the panel discussion. We talked about the major values, the ethical values. We talked about teaching the students how to use these specific apps and social media, and how to take a stand and go to a trustworthy person and explain to that person whatever they're facing. Know how to stop bully when it happens, and all of the other things that we have discussed. I believe it applies in that question.
How to deal with a person who has developed the behavior of misbehaving in any difficult situation? Khatija, you want to try to take that one?
I was thinking if we answered this question, we would solve 50% of the problems in this room. I think we talked about that a lot. Also, I think the answer is in, and I think we've been talking about love and creating safe space, and I think sometimes it does need to be said that we do need to destigmatize mental health. And seeking mental health from trained professionals, because sometimes it's beyond what parents or teachers or other peers can do for kids. So yeah, I think.
I would just add, I think this comes back to the paradigms that teachers have regarding their students. And a misbehaving student, we cannot label them as being a problem child. We need to see their worth and potential. What are they good at? Why is this happening? I had a teacher that he gave me an assignment, and I totally made a mockery of it. I turned in this paper, and I thought I was going to get in trouble. And instead, he embraced me. He accepted the assignment. He laughed with me, and he became my favorite teacher. And he saw something in me that I don't think I saw in myself at that time. I was 13 years old. And I stopped misbehaving because he believed in me. And as teachers, we need to believe in our students. And so the misbehaving students are sometimes the best students. I mean, I don't think more are better than others, but
Absolutely.
we need to love them. Yeah.
Absolutely. How, as an educationist, should I motivate positive and healthy relationships with parents?
Mainly by opening the channels of communication with parents. We need to make sure that there is an open door policy for parents to come to school and discuss any problems they have with their children. Another thing is to open the channel directly with the teacher. No one knows about the child more than the teacher. Sometimes parents come to me and they start from the school principal and, okay, this happened with my child and what should be like the consequences of this and that. And I keep telling the parents, whenever you come up with any concern about your children, make sure to go to the teacher first. She or he is spending more time with your child in the class. So they know your child better than me. You come to me, I'll go and ask the same question to the teacher and investigate and take it from up the ladder from there. The other thing, we want to make sure also that with this open communication, by time it will lead to some kind of like a trust in relationship. Parents, they need to trust us at a certain point that we are at the side of their children. The teacher has no intentions to, be on the side of this student or the side of the other students. Simply, she doesn't know them. They all come in the class equally with the same, information about them, and the background, she's very, very unaware where they are coming from. So teachers trying their best in the class, and the leaders trying their best in order to make sure that the children, they have that healthy cognitive ability, healthy emotional and social ability, which will be hopefully reflecting on their lives later on.
Thank you. I believe that's time. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Khatija, Muriel, William, and Rania.
Thank
And
you.
I hope to continue this
Thank you.
conversation forward.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. We are about to begin. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin. Please settle down. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beaconhouse in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, their partner Tech Valley, and our titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, Interwood, Franklin Covey, and Leader in Me. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Parent Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is hashtag Garden of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answer. The next panel discussion is on another fascinating topic: whiskers, wings, and wags, addressing animal neglect and mistreatment. The moderator is Ms. Zeba Masood. Ms. Zeba Masood's lifelong passion for animals led her to care for rescued pets since childhood, despite parental opposition. Her return to Pakistan in 2017 revealed severe animal abuse, prompting her to establish the Lucky Animal Protection Shelter, LAPS. LAPS, the first animal shelter in a province with over 35 million people, focuses on vaccinating, neutering, and spaying animals, striving to improve Pakistan's animal welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to have Ms. Zeba with us for the session.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and animal lovers, welcome to Whiskers, Wings and Wags, addressing animal neglect and mistreatment. A big thank you and gratitude to Beacon House and all the organizers and sponsors for giving animal welfare and its many related issues a platform to showcase and highlight our concerns. My name is Zeba Masood, and I'm the founder of Labs in Peshawar, KP province. Animal cruelty can be found in many countries, and that includes Pakistan. Common issues related to animal cruelty in Pakistan include neglect, abandonment, illegal wildlife trafficking, inhuman treatment of animals, and practices that involve cruelty to animals. It's important to note that the level of animal cruelty and the effectiveness of efforts to combat it can vary from one area to another within Pakistan. To discuss these issues and solutions, we have experts in various related fields whom I would like to invite to stage. Uh, One is Anushe Zulfishan. Anushe is the founder of JFK Animal Rescue and Shelter, one of the largest animal shelters in Pakistan. She's been working for the rescue and rehabilitation of street animals for the last 5 years and has recently started working with Punjab Police and its Police Animal Rescue Center Park initiative. She's also working towards activating the government departments to do more for street animals and to reduce animal cruelty in Pakistan. Our next panelist is Haris Shahzad. Haris Shahzad is an experienced lawyer with expertise in a wide range of cases. He is a proud owner of his own law chamber, Rafiq Law Chamber, and is passionate about advocating for social justice. Keeping with his passion for advocating, he also dictates time for pro bono cases. Sher Bano Naqvi is our next panelist, and Sherbano is a police officer who has studied public management. She also served as an assistant director in Intelligence Bureau and cleared CSS in 2019. Sherbano has established Tahaffuz Marakiz, Data Darbar, that has helped to join over 200 children and vulnerable women with their families. They have also launched a daycare center drive within police lines and banned euthanasia of dogs in the police service through the creation of the Police Animal Rescue Center, PARC. And our next panelist and a dear friend is Todd Shea, who is going to join us online. And Todd Shea is a singer, musician, a songwriter who has dedicated his life to helping others. After experiencing a personal tragedy, he began using music to share his experiences and convey a healing message. Todd founded the Comprehensive Disaster Response Services, CDRS, to provide medical aid to people affected by natural disasters and conflict. CDRS has responded to disasters in Pakistan, Haiti, Japan, New York, Greece, and the Philippines in 2014-15. CDRS led a large-scale medical relief mission in Pakistan that served over 175,000 people. In addition to their disaster response missions, Todd and CDRS teams have also worked on long-term development projects in Pakistan, providing clean drinking water, constructing schools and homes for women and children, and establishing youth and animal welfare programs. Is he there? Is he on? Todd?
Yes, he's live.
So we're going to start with, okay, great. With Haris.
Sure.
Haris, as in, we have a lot of issues that are related towards animal rights. So we would like to know from you what there are a lot of human rights, women rights, transgender rights, business rights, but do we have animal rights in Pakistan? If yes, under what circumstances or laws? Can you explain that?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum ji, I'm Haris Shahzad. As I've already been introduced, before answering the question, I just want to amend something in my introduction. While I was seated here and I was thinking about the incident happened with Allama Iqbal Sahab in 1922, while he was invited to the British comment by the British government, and he was awarded with the एक नाम लकब दिया गया था. So during that time, जब वहाँ पे गए थे speaker वहाँ पे stage पे, so he refused to take his the award that जो उनको खिताब दिया जा रहा था. तो लोगों ने वजह पूछी कि जी why are you being you have refused to take this? So he said कि ये सब कुछ है, मतलब whatever I am right now, it's because of my teachers. The education I have is just because of my teacher. So the award should be given first to the teacher who made me to do something and the effort he put in me. So the award was given. Later on, that award was given. वो खिताब दिया गया था मीर साहब को, शम्सुल इस्लाम का. And today, right now, I'm sitting in front of all the teachers. So whatever I am, it's because of the teachers. It's because of all the people sitting in front of me. All the efforts are made by the teachers. So my introduction is by teachers, whatever I am. Answering the question, coming to the question, yes, definitely we do have concern about human rights. We have seen we have seen women rights. We have seen a lot of transgender rights happening in all these circumstances in Pakistan. If we talk about animal rights, no one have ever touched that domain. No one have ever been thought of doing something about that. But recently, in there was one of the very landmark case cited as a 2021 PLD, page 6, Islamabad High Court former Chief Justice Atar Minallah Saab, nominated and voluntarily admitted in the judgment of 67 pager that animals do have basic rights like human have rights. Similarly, like we have a basic right to freedom of liberty of life, that is Article 9 of the Constitution of Pakistan. If we have a right to life, the animals do have the same right. So yes, definitely animals do have rights. And if we go back in past, if I have obviously with the session, I'll be citing all the laws, relevant laws and the punishments. But if I talk about animal has been already defined in law in the penal code section 57 as an animal, as any object instead of a human is an animal. So yes, we have animal rights in Pakistan.
But how can we make them work? How can we implement them? Laws to hain.
जी.
I think from the British times. Lekin, how can we implement? Can we improve them? Can we,
Sahil, come
you
to-
know, what do you have to say on that?
I definitely would have to answer this.
Because वो तो पुराने
पुराने
बहुत मुद्दत
जो
के
लॉज
हैं।
हैं वो ऐसे ही
Do
हैं,
they
वो
need to
कदीम
be
पुराने
written
लॉज हैं.
again?
Even the laws that we are functioning right now, obviously अभी तो introduction and I am the one who's beginning this. So when we come to other speakers, वो जब बताएंगे how we started this animal thing. So there people were sitting in front of you. I'm nothing honestly, but the things which have been done for the animals right now, the people who are sitting here right next to me, they have done a lot of effort. They have put in a lot of efforts in this animal rescuing thing. So they'll be introducing themselves. If we talk about the laws, definitely we do have laws from 1890 laws. Like recently, when we started this project, they started the project. The first case was reported, and that was the FIR was lodged under the same law which was being made in 1890, Animal Cruelty Act 1890, which is being amended in 2018. So which means that we do have laws, but we are lacking of implementation. But now we do have implementation because the government is being setting up things, and as we are moving forward, like this program is totally dependent on all the new generation thing. So as we are moving forward, we are discovering new things, and the government is taking initiative, and they are performing well. And now we have laws which are being implemented. And the major role is the police role, which are the authority who have to implement the laws, not the lawyers.
So I can't help but ask our pretty police officer here the next question that what is your role where all this animal cruelty mistreatment is concerned? Can you explain?
Before we touch upon the topic of my role in this entire enterprise, it's very important to ascertain the fact that for any society to progress, we need certain agents of change to come and play a role. And it's very vital for the human race to progress based on those agents of change. You see these agents of change in the cultural domain, in the administrative domain, in the political domain. In this case in particular, the agent of change, fortunately for us, came from within the public sector. The civil society had been talking about animal rights and the lack of implementation or the lackluster implementation of the laws which were framed by the British since forever now. And I was talking to, when we got Anushi on board and we were talking about the implementation of the rights of animals, she told me that she's been going from corridor to corridor for 5 to 6 years. And this is the first time that she thinks that, she might be taken seriously and this initiative might be taken seriously. So for us as human race to move from caves to spaceships, from caves to an entirely artificially designed universe, we need robust agents of change. That's the role that police decided to take up as far as animal rights are concerned. The first lack of animal rights scenario that we as a department stumbled upon was during PSL in Lahore, in front of the Gaddafi Stadium main gate. Very good sniffer dogs, which are bred and taken up and trained by the special branch themselves, were being euthanized. After 8 years of long service of taking care of people, ensuring their safety, हम उन्हें टीका लगा के मार देते थे क्योंकि हमें लगता था कि अब वो हमारे लिए यूटिलिटी नहीं रखते. So that was the first thing that we changed. We banned euthanasia in Punjab police, not only for the dogs, but for the horses as well. And then we moved on to creating PARC, which is Police Animal Rescue
Yes, my
Center.
next question was that
Yes.
please explain to everybody what PARC is because it's very important. It's basically in Punjab only, and we hope that we can set up something like this in KPK, inshallah, in the future. So please explain what PARC
So
is.
PARC basically is Police Animal Rescue Center. We call it PARC. It's a hospital cum shelter facility where you deal with 3 categories of animals. You can bring in your strays, you can bring in your domestic animals, and you can spot for us and bring in wild animals. So far, we have taken care of monkeys to jackals to snakes to cats to dogs to donkeys. Any animal, any hit or run case that you see on the road, you can pick up the phone. We've got a helpline. It is 0319 animals, ANIMALS. You call on it, you give the pin location, you tell us that this is the place where animal abuse is happening. Police brings their vehicles in, we rescue the animal, we take it in, and then we move it to the shelter that Zulfishan is holding. Considering this is an AI platform and we are talking about technology and how it's going to play its role in primarily changing the society that we are living in, what we have done is that we've created a software which has an application of its own, which you can inshallah later on within this week download on your mobile phones. So the moment you see an animal, you click on the application, you give us the pin location, then we connect you with a nearby vet. We have geotagged all vets in Lahore which are on board with PARC. And if you see an animal on the road and you want somebody to take it in, all you have to do is to pick up the phone, give us the location, we'll tell you the nearby vet, जो immediately आप emergency basis में उसके पास ले जाएं, and then later on we'll take the animal in. So basically it's a unit which safeguards animal rights. And not only this is the civil aspect of it. Touching upon the criminal aspect of it, so far we have given 4 FIRs. We were talking about the lackluster law enacted in 1890 and then the one which is somehow handicapped, yet in place, the law of 1974, which caters to the wildlife animals. We have given 4 FIRs in relation to this. So the moment somebody tells us that animal abuse is happening in any place, we send our teams in. We've got volunteers on board. They're school children. Anusha is going to tell you about their activities since she's the one who's looking at the operations. They're school children who come in, they take care of animals, they spend good time with them, and then they leave. It's like a rehabilitation center for the children as well because it offers a gateway, which we at times forget because everybody needs an anchor. And for our children to have become part of a safe society, we need to have such hubs in place where they can come and spend their time in. Thank you.
Even one more thing, after reporting one of the case, अगर मतलब किसी का कोई जानवर के साथ कोई cruelty हो रही है, if you report that, from that onwards, it's a duty of the par. Even we have other lawyers on the panel. तो वो complainant फिर lawyers ही उसको pursue कर रहे होते हैं. So the people who are reporting the cases, they have nothing to pursue और उनको courts और कचहरी आने की कोई जरूरत नहीं होती है.
So, Sherbano, can we borrow you for a little time in KPK? Can we take you away from...
Yes, inshallah, we would be replicating it across Punjab and across provinces.
Okay, because like I was saying, KPK is a people with, it's a different culture, mindsets. Punjab is different. We've had a lot of issues where my own experience is concerned, where their shelter is, we've had bullets land in our shelter. We've had bricks being thrown. We've had jirkas that have come and harassed my husband and threatened me. Police has been involved. कि फरिश्ते नहीं आ रहे, यहाँ से बू आती है, गंदगी है इनकी वजह से, यहाँ से आप निकलें. We literally had to move, and we are now in a separate place. We are in Sadarya, Charsadda mein. So we've had a lot of issues, and that is why what they are talking about, rights, police, it's very important. And this, thank you to this platform and this SOT conference that we can even discuss all this. So I would like to go to Anusha because Anusha also has a lot to do with PARC. and she has her own shelter that she's been working on for the last 5-6 years. So Anusha, please tell us what you've done so far, how you're involved.
First of all, I'd like to say I'm extremely honored to be sitting here because I'm a Beaconite. And Beaconhouse is the only school I ever went to, so it makes me very happy because I was an ordinary student. I used to get those turtle certificates and all that, but I think I have done something right in my life that I'm sitting here today and telling other people about my story. So I think you should also always follow your passion and do what you want to do and what makes you happy, and you will succeed.
Yeah.
So my journey goes back to 5 years ago when my pet dog Kiki was shot dead at my doorstep. She was a stray dog that I adopted, and she was culled by the culling squad that mercilessly kills all the street dogs in Lahore, Punjab. That's very common all over Pakistan. So when I saw her dead body piled up in dead bodies in a truck, I was literally traumatized and I lost my senses and I was, what is this? Matlab, I raised her like my daughter and this is what I'm seeing, this pool of blood, and I couldn't even find her body. And then I go to police station to file a FIR and launch an FIR, and they were laughing at me. And they were like, you're a mummy daddy kid and you're burger bache and all that stuff. Very negative stuff. They mocked me and I walked out and I was like, there's no law here. And what I'm going to do about it? It's so heartbreaking. But whatever happened that day with Kiki, it gave me an incentive, a goal, because I channeled all my pain into a power and I created JFK, Justice for Kiki, which is currently the largest animal shelters in Punjab, and I've been helping hundreds and thousands of animals. And what makes me happy is that I'm not only rescuing them, they are somehow rescuing and healing me. And every time I help an animal, I know I owe it to Kiki, because if it was not for her, I would have done all these wonderful things that I'm doing today. So dogs, donkeys, cats, birds, and then I moved to wild animals. And it wasn't planned कि मैं कभी wild animals को भी rescue कर रही होंगी, fox, lumria, you name it. I was all over. Her animal का फिर I became, a support system that I have to be there for all of them. And it was a struggle because, previously क्या होता था that people, just like people report crimes and cruelty of humans to police stations, people would report that about animals to me as a shelter. And that was something that police and all these organizations weren't aware of, that, there is equal cruelty on animals that there is on humans. Like I literally got reported about cases where animals were sexually abused, where they had been victims of acid attacks, where they were burnt, where they were raped, whatnot. So they're living beings. I mean, we go through the same thing and they go through the same torture and pain and everything. It was my struggle of 5 years. I've had countless meetings with official departments, with top-notch people, with whatnot. I've tried my level best, but I always, felt that there was no legal support, there was no power, there was nothing, and I felt like I was on my own. But recently, whatever happened with Punjab police, I think I would say I got lucky because I met these amazing set of officials that literally took action and did things that I only dreamed of. And what basically happened was that my experience and whatever I do for animals and their will to make the changes and, help the animals combined and together, we were able to create an amazing platform, which is PARC, Police Animal Rescue Center. And I'm currently dealing with the operations of the center. It's like a hub where all shelters, all animal lovers, volunteers, lawyers, veterinary doctors are all together under one umbrella of Punjab Police. And we have this legal back and support. So we're not only helping the victims, the animals, we're also taking actions against the criminals. And so far, I think we have over 8 people in lockup right now that have done horrible crimes on animals. So I would call it a success. So
Amazing pioneers, We have a lot to talk about, but we want to talk to our friend Todd. Todd, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, Todd, ladies and gentlemen, has been a big friend of Lucky Animal Protection Shelter. He has helped us tremendously from. He has helped us make enclosures. He's made our clinic. He's given us an ambulance to work with. So we are very thankful and grateful. Todd is a great asset to Pakistan, and we love him. Todd, you've done so much work. Can you tell us and can you tell everybody here about what you're doing and what you have in the future?
Well, for humans, we have about 700 plus clean drinking water projects. We have 3 clinics in remote areas for mother and child health. We have 2 House of Blessings for widows and orphans, one in Karachi, one in Rawalpindi, and another one is going to be opening up with the help of Sherabano and the Punjab Police in Lahore by the beginning of the year. We build schools, we build homes for people in need. We have responded to every disaster in Pakistan since the Zalzala 2005, when I first came to Pakistan with a group of Pakistani American doctors to respond to the earthquake. I'm a former musician, got into logistics work in disasters by accident on 9/11, and then went to many different countries and came to Pakistan for the earthquake and fell in love with the country and ended up staying here 18 years now. But thank you. But during that time, we saw a lot of suffering of animals when we were on our relief missions and things. And so we always helped animals. We didn't have a formal program for helping animals, but we just helped the animals that were in the disaster zone that we saw with food and water and trying to rescue them if they were injured. About 4 or 5 years ago, we formalized the project and made it called it the Benji Project after a famous Hollywood dog, and one of our chief donors, his dog's name was Benji, so we named it after him. And that donor, Murtaza Hussein, was very instrumental in us being able to take that program to a larger scale. So over the last 2.5 years, especially, we have been able to help over 40,000 animals in need. 20,000 of them during the floods of last year, where we were able to give veterinary services and feed to farm animals. And then another 20,000 plus dogs and cats and some horses and donkeys around the country by way of a rescue team that we've set up that has ambulances in some of the major cities of the country, as well as the in Goldberg Greens, Islamabad, a trap, neuter, vaccinate, release facility and shelter, which we've now opened up earlier this year, another shelter in Karachi, and we're opening up within a couple weeks the Lahore shelter in Bedia will go online. And then we have the very first agreement with a district government and a NGO for not killing dogs and cats, and instead doing the trap, neuter, vaccinate, release program. So we've officially initiated that with the Skurdu district government, and it's going very well. We've been operating that for about 5-6 months, and so it's a new program, but it's going very well. In amongst our operations to help stray animals, we have gotten to know many other rescuers and shelters. Of course, we've known about you for a long time. Everybody that's watching is here at this event. We all have to really appreciate Zeba, who is a true champion of animals and has laps in Charsada, Peshawar area, doing a fantastic job. So we supported her. We've also supported 25 other independent and struggling rescuers and shelters So we used the grant money that we got not just to grow our own program, but to help 25 others and share those funds and resources, because our idea was that we didn't just want to create a program where we did good work, but we wanted to help enable and empower other shelters and rescuers who are always struggling for funds, and give them an opportunity to build some infrastructure, to scale up their programs, and to have some help. And some of the people that we've helped, they just weren't getting much help at all. And so we were able to spread those funds around. So we've been trying to work with government officials. There's a lot of animal lovers in the government service who are starting to, like Sherbano and the Punjab Police, who want to make change. And they're in a position to help us in a system that has been cruel to animals. Or like, our barrister was saying that there's laws on the books, and that's true. But the enforcement and implementation of those laws is what we need to catch up with. And so what CDRS is doing is advocacy. We've funded several cases of animal cruelty, fighting against animal cruelty, and supporting rescuers who are involved in legal cases. We've paid their legal bills, and we are in schools. We've gone to several schools. We've been on several shows, and we're going to continue that and try to do even more to spread the word about why it's important for a society to be blessed. Allah guides us in the Quran. So we have the laws on the books, but we also have the Quran for guidance. The Holy Quran, and Allah gives us the guidance to be kind to animals, to not mistreat animals. So unfortunately in Pakistan, when it comes to the religion, when it comes to the laws, the public has not been made aware. The children of Pakistan have not been given programs that makes them aware of animal rights and the feelings of animals, empathy for animals. So CDRS is trying to do whatever it can to help develop empathy in society, to work with more government officials across the country to implement more of the kind of programs that we're seeing from Punjab Police and Anushe, because they're really at the forefront. Congratulations and salute to them for doing something which has been desperately needed in Pakistan, and hopefully that's planting the seeds that will grow across the country and end up being implemented everywhere, so that there can be true change in Pakistan. Because even children, they throw stones at a dog. They're scared of dogs. Their dogs are demonized, and it's a big problem in Pakistan. I always tell people, human beings are not the victim of dogs. Dogs are the victim of human beings. A child throws a stone at a dog and a dog gets injured. It's a stray dog. It can't go to the doctor. So that head injury festers and gets infected, and then maggots. And I've seen dogs with half of their head eaten away because of a child threw a stone. So these are the kinds of things that we need to create awareness of, so that we can reduce these things and then go on to be able to do trap, neuter, vaccinate, release, reduce the population of stray animals in a humane way, a scientifically proven, effective, Islamically permissible, and environmentally safe way, like they did in Turkey 20 years back, so that we can reduce rabies, reduce bite cases, and so we can have more blessings of Allah, that we've created a society of empathy for not only people and children and people in need, but animals as well.
Thank you, Todd, so much. It must be, 5:30 in the morning?
Yes.
Are you going to go back to sleep?
I probably will take a nap, because we've had 3 events in a row this weekend, and then this wonderful event, which I'm so happy to be a part of, and the organizers, Humera and the organizers have done a great job. So yeah, I'm in the States. I wish I could be there with you, but I'll be back in about 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for whatever you do. I just want to emphasize that it's the younger generations, because I personally feel jo hamare older generations hain, they have failed us. We're teaching children compassion and empathy. So, but we can change it. And it all depends on our teachers and our schools. अगर आप इन बच्चों को स्कूल में सिखाएं, अगर वो घर पे नहीं सीख रहे हैं, तो it would make a big difference. We have to somehow get this into our curriculum. We have to get more books. We need to have kind of a community service where children can go to shelters, and spend time there, so that they learn. It's very important um, to add an animal in your child's life, which I feel needs to be stressed. An animal can be used in various forms. बच्चों को epilepsy है, या different autistic हैं, या animals can help. So these are important things, and this is the first step. And we are so happy, and I
also
feel that Anushi, you can elaborate more
I
on
would
this.
like to add here that having a companion animal really helps you a lot. Even if you're, living alone, or you're going through depression, or you feel,
Yes.
worthless or anything, or this lack of confidence, a dog, a pet, or a cat is a kind of animal, a pet animal, that when you come home, he would greet you with so much love that you would forget whatever happened in your entire day. And he would make you feel like the loveliest person around. So that is the power of having a pet animal. And when we're talking about, like, Todd mentioned about TNVR, I would like to add here is that when we have COVID, coronavirus jab aaya tha, and people were getting infected, the virus was spreading rapidly. There was no vaccine even. What were we doing? Were we culling humans? Were we shooting them? Were we poisoning them? No. We were waiting for a treatment. We were vaccinating them. There was a proper strategy made. And the doctors, they get it together to find a solution to it. What we're doing right now with street dogs, with stray animals, which is a problem of increasing population, but the way it's being dealt with since hundreds of years, and the problem is still there. So that means the problem is not dealt in the right manner. So what I would like to say is that the government departments, the district administrations, and all the other governing bodies, they need to opt for TNVR. What is TNVR? TNVR is trapping the animal from the streets, neutering them, spaying them, vaccinating them, sterilizing them, making them safe for not only themselves but for the society.
That is the only solution.
That is the only solution.
Spaying, neutering. Because ये जो epidemic है overpopulation का, जो सड़कों पे ये हैं, it's not right. Yes, in the West, they euthanize, they kill them, but they do not let them suffer on the streets. Somebody asked me, they said, what do you think? Is it okay for them to be on the streets, or do you think it should be like the West where they euthanize them? I said, I don't know. I don't really like the idea. मैं सुबह उठती हूँ, मुझे 45 minutes लगते हैं अपने shelter जाने में, और रास्ते में मैं इतना कुछ देखती हूँ कि बस बहुत ही depressing मामला है. एक तो animals, besides poor children, poverty, there's so much to see. But of course, we're talking about animal rights here. So basically, instead of spending money on bullets and poison, if we can ask the government, please take that money and support your local shelters, give them the power to neuter and spay. And I ask you as community members कि please आप लोगों की अपनी लेन में हमेशा 1-2-3 कुत्ते होते हैं या cats होती हैं, please आप लोग somehow उसको wet पहुंचाएं, उसको spay करें, because वो तो हर 6 महीने 10-12 बच्चे लाती है, whether it's a cat or a dog. It multiplies. वो हर 6 महीने जो 6 आते हैं, फिर वो बड़े होते हैं 5-6 महीनों में, वो फिर start giving litters. So as a community, with the government and us, we have to do this collectively, because like they say, I have a quote here, and I feel that, like Gandhi said, the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way the animals are treated. So I feel we are zero where that is concerned. So, of course, a lot of it depends on all our schools, all our teachers, us. So, what would you like to say?
I'd like to
Iman?
add to this. There are basically primarily three aspects to the issue that we're dealing with. Why do we have to argue over whether animal rights are rights or not? That is something that should be, that is something that should irk every sensible civil human being. It's not humans versus animals. For starters, this narrative needs to be demolished, completely taken off the charts. It's the fact that you would be able to safeguard human rights properly and more effectively if you start safeguarding animal rights. And why do I say this as an implementer of law, as a person who's at the ground level? Is because most of the cases that we see of 324, we see of hurt, or we see of 302, we see of murder, or we see of domestic abuse, or women harassment, or children being beaten, or sodomy, or sexual harassment are of people who have somewhere in the past indulged or facilitated animal abuse. So basically, if you do not talk about animal abuse, you're raising a child who is apathetic, who has no empathy whatsoever, who is more focused on driving pleasure out of the pain of any living thing, animal or human. And then later on, you have a society which has already faced the specter of terrorism, which has
Yes.
already become resilient to bloodshed, and now is becoming resilient to animal abuse and later on the abuse of human rights.
Like we were discussing that uh, we are actually encouraging criminals because
Exactly.
a lot of these people that you see being cruel to animals normally turn into pedophiles, they turn into God knows horrible stuff. You can explain more on that.
The thing is that if you do not talk about animal rights or you term it as an agenda which is being propagated by the Western world to make us more gullible or naive, you're basically raising a generation which is not going to take into account anybody or the feelings of anyone. शुरू इधर से होता है कि जानवर ही तो है, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, और बात खत्म होती है कि बच्चों के साथ ऐसे होता रहता है सोसाइटी के अंदर. जब बच्चा बड़ा होता है इधर से हाथ लग जाता है लड़की को, और एक बच्चे के साथ लाइफ में एक दफा तो इंसिडेंट ऐसा हो ही जाता है कि दूसरा लड़का उसके साथ कुछ कर दे. ये सिनेरियोज मैंने खुद सुने भी हैं, देखे भी हैं, और उनको डिफेंड भी किया जाता है जब आपके पास ऐसा कोई चाइल्ड अब्यूज का केस आता है. तो बेसिकली यू आर लिविंग इन अ सोसाइटी जो कहती है कि हकूक है ही नहीं, और जो हकूक की बात करेगा उसका दिमाग थोड़ा सा हिला हुआ है. आई एम सॉरी टू यूज दिस वर्ड. सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट to raise the point of rights, regardless of whether you're talking about a living thing, a thing which is able to explain or express his or her feelings, or a living thing which is unable to do so. बेजुबान के भी उतने ही हुकूक हैं जितने जुबान रखने वाले के हैं. जितनी जल्दी हम ये बात समझ जाएं, उतनी जल्दी हमारा जो मुआशरा है वो ठीक हो जाएगा.
जी,
When adding further,
I just wanted to say कि it starts from the bottom. आप एक बच्चे को एक एनिमल रखेंगे तो वो बच्चा सीखेगा कि इसका ख्याल रखना है, मैं इसका जिम्मेवार हूँ, इसको खाना देना है, साफ करना है, सब कुछ करना है. ये वही बच्चा फिर बड़ा हो के will be more empathetic towards humanity. उसी तरह वो फिर इंसानों का भी करेगा. So please, it's very important as teachers, as schools, that we must do something where or teach these children how to behave with animals. I wanted to also ask you, Haris, कि please अगर आप explain कर सकते हैं about being responsible pet owners, and in case if there's an issue of like say a pet runs loose and bites What do you do where that is
Well,
concerned?
it's a very good, important question for us to address. I wanted to add further in the discussion of madam who's sitting next to me. We do have penalties if you are cruel to animal. So first of all, we need to identify the penalties. If you are cruel to animals, the section, the act we have, the Animal Cruelty Act 1890, identifies few of the sections from section 3 till 5. 5A we have the penalties describing if you are cruel to animal, the punishment for that is like 50 months imprisonment for till 6 months. If you are selling a skin of an animal, if you have killed him, like if you have killed an animal and you have taken off his skin, uski imprisonment leda hai. So there are certain laws and the penalties and the punishments are given and they're categorized. कि if you are cruel to an animal, तो उसकी भी जिस तरह हम लोग इंसानों के लॉस में देखते हैं कि हर्ट है, तो वो स्टार्ट होता है हर्ट 337 से, उसमें उसकी भी क्लासिफिकेशन आती है कि व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ हर्ट इट इज. कि आपको वेदर इट्स अ मार्क, इफ इट्स अ बोन रिफ्लेक्ट होगी, तो उसकी इम्प्रिजनमेंट जो है वो बढ़ती जाएगी जितना संगीन होता जाएगा. सिमिलरली विद एनिमल्स वी हैव द सेम लॉज एंड द वाइल्ड लाइफ एक्ट वी डू हैव द लॉज. अब बात करें, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द क्रुएल्टी विद एनिमल्स. कैन एनिमल बी क्रुएल टू अस? Yes, we do have laws as well, which defends a human from being from the attack of an animal. If a person who's having a pet with a pet owner, it's his responsibility to look after his pet and to train him. I think all of you must have known about the incident that happened in Karachi with 2 German shepherds were killed, shooted because they bite one of the advocate. I'm sorry, he was for my family, from the advocate family, but the victim was an advocate, and then he took it to the court, and the court lawfully permitted to shoot those 2 German shepherds. That was a very vulnerable incident. But the thing is, there's a responsibility of a pet. So once someone's pet, if it's a dog, bites someone, it's the animal would never be imprisoned, but the pet owner who's keeping that animal would be imprisoned depending on the situation. Like one of the case was reported in Lahore High Court, because in the act we have different punishments related to the dog biting. There's a negligence of a owner, uski imprisonment kam hai. But if going through the attack and going through the hurt which was caused, वो उस दौरान उस लॉ के अंदर, उस जजमेंट के अंदर ये साइटेड किया गया था कि वो एक्ट बहुत ज्यादा, वो जो बाइट था वो इतना ज्यादा संगीन था कि that the person was imprisoned for 10 years. So this is the responsibility of the pet owner, knowing if he's keeping a pet, then he has to train his pet and he has to make precautions. If it's a pet is a wild sort of breed, like we have bulldogs, we have other animals. So if they're keeping them, so he should be very much aware and sensitive about having his pet and taking him out for walk or something like that. Furthermore, if we want to keep animals, like we do have wild animals, considering we do have game animals. Game animals are those animals which are wild animals, like we do have lions, and we have seen that concept that wild animals are being kept. But there's always a procedure. We follow a procedure. If you want to keep a wild animal, you have to opt a license which is issued by the Wildlife Authority.
Yes, there's a lot of people who I believe keep
Yes, that is a proper licensing
without
thing. You cannot keep it.
licenses, and
If
it's
you
not
keep
right.
an animal, wild animal, game animal, then you have an imprisonment.
First of all, they should be in the wild. They should not be in homes. We've heard crazy stories where people are keeping giraffes and lions and all kinds of wild animals.
Illegally.
My
That was
God,
illegal.
in a home. I mean, that's cruel. That's cruelty in itself.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you have to take a proper license from wildlife. You have to follow the SOPs. Once you're done with that, you pay the dues and pay the amount. You get the license, and you have to renew every year.
Anushe, can you tell us how education can play a role in changing young minds and make them more empathetic? And how important is awareness where it comes to animal rights? Maybe because we are, there's a lot of teachers here, we are in the school system here, so maybe it might help.
Zeba, the thing is, the child won't be meeting an animal lover, an animal activist, or going to a shelter every day. But a child goes to school every day, and whatever a child learns at the school stays with them forever.
Forever.
So it is very important for schools, universities, and colleges, especially schools, to include animal rights and basic animal, treatment and all that in the curriculum. So we raise up a society, a youth, a group of youth that is more empathetic towards animals and other living beings. So I think it's a very important thing, and I think Beaconhouse should start it and should be the first school to basically implement this. That would make me very happy.
So I wanted.
I'm
You
sorry. I
wanted
have
to
to.
say
Yes,
something?
yes. I think we are running out of time. We have some questions from the audience, so they're mentioned here right now.
Yes,
If you want,
I
you can
just
answer.
have one last thing that I need to mention, and that is how has inflation hit shelters and animal rescuers? I just wanted to say that please, please, please support your local shelters in your areas, the animal rescuers, animal activists, shelters like JFK, like CDRS, like LAPS, we are the only shelter in 35 million people in KPK, and there are thousands that need help. We are just like a drop in the ocean, but we are trying. We've done 1,500 or more spayings, neutrins. We've vaccinated about 5,000, but it's nothing. There's so much more that needs to be done, but we can only do so much because we are doing it on our own. We have no help from the government. So please support your local shelters. Do you want to say something about that,
I
Nusha?
just would really appreciate if there are any questions from the audience, so we
Yes.
all
We
can
do
answer
have.
Todd,
from our
I
debates.
don't
There
know.
is a
Todd, are you
question.
still there?
I think Todd can answer that.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
he's.
here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Do you have any last? We're going to start asking the audience questions. Before that, if you have something quick to say.
Sure. I think it's very important what's being said about uh, instilling in the education system, the schools, and with children um, this animal cruelty and animal empathy uh, for all of the creatures. It is so important to instill this, and this is something that CDRS is working on, and we're trying our best to keep this thing in the public eye, and I think that all of the animal activists should get on the media as much as possible. We're also delivering flyers which talk about these things so that and they're in and either in Pashto or in Urdu, so that we can disseminate that information to the public. So this is really what we need to do. And I would say that um, I would echo what you've said, that even if it's a few rupees, every um, month or every week or whatever, if a million people all gave a rupee, that would be a million rupees. So even if it's a small donation, everybody should be having some small amount that they give to the shelters, because the cost of operations is already expensive, and with the inflation, it's gotten to be too much. So in order for us to scale up, it's going to be needing help from the government and getting them more involved. But the people of Pakistan, even if they don't like animals, even if it's somebody doesn't really like animals, that's okay if they don't like animals and that's their preference, but they should still be empathetic towards them and understand that they also have a role to play in
Yes. Yes.
helping the shelters and helping the society, so that we solve all of these problems associated with having too many domestic animals abandoned and on the streets.
Yes, it's a big issue, but hopefully this is a start, Todd, and hopefully we can all work collectively with the community and
And I think we
for
should
the
be
future
answering the
generations.
questions now. And
Yes.
somebody's
So,
asking,
Todd,
is there
thank
a
you
way?
so much. We are going to go to the audience because
We have to
So there is a question: is there a
Yeah.
way to
They're
engage
placed by the
young
audience.
children with JFK? I would like to tell that I recently went to the head office of Beaconhouse in Lahore, and we signed up an MOU, which is about how children from Beaconhouse can actually come and volunteer with us, and we have volunteer programs from toddlers to the advanced ages, and all of you can volunteer with us. There's no age group problem over here. In fact, we customize really cute programs, a 1 day trip for children that where they can come and interact with the rescued animals, they can feed them, they can learn about them. So I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think they're going to implement it in all branches of Lahore Beacon houses,
Great.
which is a great thing.
We are doing our best to engage with schools and universities and colleges in KPK. I want you to know that please, KPK is also as important and we have the same issues, so I don't want it to be ignored.
Okay. So should we talk about the next question?
How does animal, can you guys go ahead?
So, as far as how does animal cruelty affect or impact the world, we've already talked about it once. I'd just reiterate that it's very important not to raise a generation which is resilient to bloodshed and it's resilient to abuse and resilient to cruelty. So it's very important for the children to come in contact with animals at a young age. We should have the issues related to the rights and the abuse of rights in the curriculum. We should have petting zoos somehow in small stations and kindergarten branches where kids interact on a weekly basis with animals. And thirdly, it's very important for the schools to make an internship which is compulsory in the summers or the winters for the children to come and interact with animals. Otherwise, God forbid, we would have a society which would have children who would not have an issue with killing or abusing the rights of humans if they start abusing the rights of animals. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to answer two questions in one go. Which is the most, abused animal? What I've learned on ground field work is that it's donkeys. I would not say it's dogs, it's donkeys. You can't even imagine the level of abuse they go through. And they're simply thrown into dumpsters when they can no longer work or pick up weights. And we have been rescuing minimum of 5 donkeys per day in Lahore recently. So that's a very large number as compared to other parts of the country. And most of them cannot see, or they're bleeding, or they're full of they're full of maggots, or they have broken legs or swollen joints. So I think the most abused animal in my eyes working on ground field is donkeys.
Yes, same goes with us in KPK. It's horrible. It's the most loving, sweet animal, but it's the most abused. I don't know why. It कितनी बुरी बात है कि जैसे उनको पता चलता है कि ये किसी काम का नहीं है, ऐसे ही फेंक देते हैं वो. कोई रिगार्ड नहीं है कि भाई इन्होंने इस एनिमल से हमने इतनी कमाई की है, इसका एटलीस्ट अब ओल्ड एज में ख्याल तो रखें. पता नहीं ये लोग डरते नहीं हैं अल्लाह को जवाब देना है. कुछ समझ नहीं आती. They want us to go to the next question. So
I want to add further in this question because I will I'll answer this one. I said the worst kind of animal abuse would be, one is the killing of animals. Obviously, that is the most cruelty to animal. But in that case, animal usko to hum maar dete hain. The worst cruelty to animal is keeping him or her captive in that environment jahan pe wo suitable nahi hai. Similarly, there was a case, I think any one of you are aware about the law, the judgment. There were 2 bears in Islamabad, Susie and Bablu. They were sent back to Jordan because they were not being properly treated and properly, they were not being rescued in this environment. So they were sent back. So, I think for me, from my side of point of view, the worst kind of abuse would be keeping an animal in the prison, in the jail, and, keeping him without that environment where he cannot resist.
I think this debate can go on for so long, and this
can go
topic
on
is so
forever.
interesting, but the time is over, and we're really
Time is
thankful
over.
for
Thank
all
you
of you
so
for
much.
having us over.
Thank you, everybody, for attending this. We thank you all. Please teach your children to be kind. And if you see cruelty, stop it on the streets. वो आपके हाथ में है. अगर आप देखते हैं कि कोई जुल्म कर रहा है तो उनको रोकें.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for the last session. Please do not get up. Please be seated. Ladies, please do not leave the hall. Please be seated. No, I did say that. नहीं सॉन्ग थ्री फोर 5 मिनट रह गए 5 Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. We're going to start after 5 minutes. 2 more minutes to go. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. We are about to start. Assalamu alaikum. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you.
Due to a technical issue, we have to wait 2 minutes.
Due to some technical issues, we'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Okay, Assalamu alaikum once again. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beaconhouse in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, their partner Tech Valley, and our titanium sponsor UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, Interwood, Franklin Covey, and Leader in Me. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, that is, hashtags Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answers. Well, up next, we have an important discussion on the topic Ideate, Innovate, and Initiate, moderated by Mr. Nasir Kasuri. Mr. Nasir Kasuri is the CEO of a number of companies under the Beaconhouse Group umbrella. This includes Beaconhouse International College, which provides UK based undergraduate and postgraduate programs in Pakistan. He also heads Beacon Energy Limited, a provider of high quality solar PV solutions, as well as Homebridge, Beaconhouse's first foray into fully online education. He sits on the board of Knowledge Platform, a company focused on leveraging AI and machine learning to bring quality learning to students in Pakistan, and is also the chairman of the board of Teach for Pakistan, an organization that places internees in 2-year teaching fellowships in government schools. He has done his BSc Social Sciences from the Lahore University of Management Sciences and Executive MBA from the London School of Economics, delivered in conjunction with HSE Paris and NYU Stern. Sir, we are honored to have you with us today. You are requested to join us on the stage, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the 16th edition of SOT events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. As the moderator of today's panel discussion titled Ideate, Innovate, Initiate, Empowering Future Entrepreneurs, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to what promises to be a riveting conversation. So just a brief introduction of the panel. Rapid technological advancements and evolving the business landscape create the ideal environment for a new generation of entrepreneurs. This session explores the many aspects of entrepreneurship, from the transformative power of digital assessments in promoting inclusivity, the guiding principles of cultivating leadership and life skills in educational models, to the strategic nuances of venture investments in budding tech industries. Drawing insights from global education strategies, Pakistan's burgeoning tech scene, innovative curriculum design, and the world of venture capitalism, the discussion aims to sculpt a holistic view on empowering future entrepreneurs, equipping them with the tools to ideate, innovate, and initiate. So without further ado, let me introduce you all to our distinguished panelists. We have Mr. William McIntyre. Mr. McIntyre, if you could take the stage, please. William Bill McIntyre is a Senior Vice President of Franklin Covey Education and International General Manager. For the past 12 years, Mr. McIntyre has led the expansion of Franklin Covey's international network of partners and the growth of Leader in Me schools from their humble beginnings to now over 3,200 schools outside the US. Over the past several years, he has delivered workshops, keynote speeches, and training focused on transforming education. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Faisal Aftab. Faisal, if you'll join us on stage. Faisal Aftab is a Pakistani American having an impressive 23-year career as an executive entrepreneur and venture investor. As the founder and general partner of Zain VC, Faisal has played a pivotal role in driving the sector's growth and development. Faisal's educational background further enhances his investment acumen with an MBA from Oxford University and joint bachelor's and master's degrees from Michigan State University. Welcome, Faisal. We have two panelists joining us online. Dr. J.D. LaRocque, firstly, is the president and CEO of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, NFTE, a global nonprofit organization that provides high-quality entrepreneurship education to middle school, high school, and young adult students from under-resourced communities. Dr. LaRocque is a professor of the practice of law and policy at Northeastern University. He earned his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees from Harvard University and a law degree from Georgetown University. Welcome, Dr. LaRocque, to the panel. And lastly, again, online, we have Dr. Jesse Dvorak. Dr. Jesse Dvorak is a seasoned education professional with over 20 years of experience in educational leadership and innovation. Currently, Dr. Dvorak serves as the Deputy Director, Digital Products and Services at Cambridge University Press and Assessments, where she leads the digital assessment and evaluation product and services for over 10,000 schools in 160 countries around the world. So welcome to our last panelist, Dr. Jesse Dvorak. And so let's start with some opening remarks, ladies and gentlemen. So just to get the conversation going, you all come from a diverse range of backgrounds with your own experiences, and I would be interested in knowing how technology has been transformative in your area of work, and in what ways it has in what ways it has enabled greater entrepreneurship. So perhaps we can begin with you, Faisal, and then take it from there.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be at this conference. So in my line of work, actually, it's all linked to technology because we're investing in companies that are leveraging technology to disrupt our very way of life and effectively everything we do. So what we've seen, particularly, let's say, in a place like Pakistan, to us, this age is very similar to the period in history when partition happened and Pakistan was created. That was the Industrial Revolution, disrupting the agrarian structure of the world, where you saw people moving from farmland labor and moving to the industrialized age. In fact, the education system today is geared to train people from the manufacturing stage. Today in Pakistan, you've got the same opportunity where you have the information age at exponential adoption and disrupting the industrial age very rapidly. And adoption is among the 4th fastest in the world in terms of smartphone adoption, data adoption. And so for us, backing entrepreneurs in Pakistan, the 5th most populous country, producing a lot of talent, for the first time, we get to back people based on their intellect and capabilities versus asking for collateral, such as land or any hard asset. And so I think it truly is going to unlock the potential of this country.
Absolutely. And Faisal, do you think that technology has played an important role in making that transition possible?
In terms of today?
I mean, there were startups before there was heavy use of technology also, is what I'm saying. How is today's startup, or how has technology further enabled entrepreneurs in the current context?
So it's happening in layers. So whether you look at what's happening to traditional linear media, satellite and cable, versus adoption of social media, and then having ripple effects in society in terms of the information war, per se. The same thing is playing out in terms of businesses. So the analogy I do again is when Pakistan was created and somebody realized that it needs a bank, it needs an insurance company. Similarly, now people have realized that there's a significant chunk of population online, and they need banks, e-commerce stores. And so it's going to be a fundamental shift in the way we exist.
Absolutely. And Bill.
Yes, thank you. And I'm honored to be here as well. As you know, our company is more focused on the training side and human side of helping to build leaders of the future who are often entrepreneurs. We've used technology in our process to be able to digitize training content, offer it. We were able to reach more teachers, more students, to create more learning opportunities through technology. I think you just can't avoid technology. It is what we do today, and that's why, I mean, you're in the entrepreneurial business with developing technological companies. You know, I was reading an article in Forbes magazine recently, and it mentioned what are the top 10 skills that are going to be needed in the next 10 years for future leaders and future employers. And the top one was digital literacy. So not only do we need to use technology, but we need to be able to work within it and in it. The second one was data literacy, being able to analyze data. But it was interesting, the following 8 of those 10 were all life skills. They were all skills like creativity, collaboration, leadership, time management, and those kind of skills. So my take on technology and AI in particular is it's a beautiful resource, and we want to leverage it as much as possible. But in using AI and technology, we don't want to lose our humanity. And we need to make sure that we are running our lives and not technology. Technology should help us do that better and more effectively.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. LaRocque, if we can have your opening statement, please.
Yes, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be with all of you. At our organization, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, we work mostly with young people in the US and Pakistan and all around the world, and we help them to create businesses. And I think it will come to no surprise to you and to the audience that young people in particular are quite attuned to technology and are very interested in utilizing technology to become entrepreneurs. I often say that our young people tend to create businesses in three key categories. One of those is app-based businesses. We see young entrepreneurs all around the world really leaning into technology to leverage the internet and app-based businesses to become young entrepreneurs. Now, with the emergence of a new generation of AI, we are also seeing our young entrepreneurs really embrace ChatGPT and other formats to become entrepreneurs. So I think that the use of technology is always going to be prevalent among entrepreneurship, and in fact is a powerful enabler for entrepreneurship in countries all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And Dr. Jesse, your perspective on how technology has potentially enabled an increase in entrepreneurship in the world.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually going to build on something that Bessel said, because I think it's really key in the idea that we're in a space where we're transitioning from the Industrial Revolution towards the digital age and the digital revolution. And I think that's a really key part of where we're at in education as well. We're really trying to work to align what students need for 21st century success in a digital age. And Bill mentioned some of those skills as well, and how we bring that into the classroom. And a big part of what my job is at Cambridge and what we focus on in the technology space is how do we appropriately align our assessments, our teaching and learning curriculum, and the skills and needs that students will have to bring forward to that 21st century space into the teaching and learning environment to support them as they move forward, so they have those necessary skills to be entrepreneurs and lead forward.
So it's an interesting point you make. In fact, it leads me to my next question, Dr. Jesse, which perhaps I'll just start with you. Because we keep talking about 21st century skills, and we talk often, other than digital literacy skills, about skills like communication, empathy. I wonder, what are the distinct skills that budding, aspiring entrepreneurs need to have in the 21st century, and are they really hugely different from the skills that entrepreneurs needed to have in the past? I mean, you always had to be a good communicator. You needed to be able to empathize with people and connect with them to launch a business. So I'm wondering, what are the distinctly 21st century skills that kids need to have now, and are they really different from what was required in the past?
I think, to Bill's point earlier, I think that there's some that are going to be different. We talk about digital literacy and data literacy and those pieces, but I think fundamentally, a lot of the things like problem solving, critical thinking, metacognition, a lot of those pieces that we see to move forward, leadership, communication, collaboration, those are all the same, but how you engage with them, how they're used, how you are applying them, that's what tends to look different. And the need that students have to have with the comfort around technology and how technology is used to engage with those skills and apply those skills is the piece that we've had to adjust to support them to go forward in that 21st century. I don't think it's that the skills are different, but how you apply them and use them and adapt them in the workforce is what looks very different.
No, that's true. I mean, obviously, the way in which we connect and collaborate are totally different from how they were in the past, in the Industrial Revolution and before. Agreed. Faisal, as a VC, I mean, I know that VCs kind of, one of the things that VCs often talk about is, investing in the founder. So, what are the skills and attributes you look for in a founder when you're investing in them?
Yeah. So, and I think education plays a huge part in this. And one of the things, I guess, from a Pakistan's perspective, we need to learn to accept failures and understand that failures, as long as people learn from it, you're going to end up, succeeding the fifth time possibly, right? So you get back up and you keep trying. The other thing is that you want to also encourage outside the box thinking and creative thinking. So many times when we're investing in founders, one of the main attributes comes down to resilience and the ability to understand, look, it's an extremely tough endeavor when you become an entrepreneur versus an employee. The chances of failure are quite high, but at the same time, if you have the tenacity to keep getting back up every time you face a problem, and so it's really assessing those skills up front. And one of the ways we do it is by seeing their past performance. So many of our founders have come from existing tech platforms like in the region, for example, Careem, which is an Uber company, Delivery Heroes, Food Panda. These are the first platforms that had entered Pakistan, and then Alibaba's Daraz. So teams, especially at the middle management layer or pseudo upper management layer, when those individuals leave and start a company, they have been through that tenacity and that drive to scale a tech company. And so that's the attributes we look at today in terms of where Pakistan sits. And I think in the future, what we'll be looking for, similarly as there's programs like Spark Tank, for example, in Beaconhouse, that's identifying talent at an early age, 13, 14. As those entrepreneurs from that pool evolve and succeed or have failures, we will then look at pools like that. And hopefully there'll be other programs like that. Yeah. And so it's a continuous evolution process.
No, that makes a lot of sense. What about like a completely fresh entrepreneur who doesn't have a track record? Are there markers you look for in those people?
So I have backed. It tends to be more in highly scalable tech companies, non-operational links. So I did one of the youngest founders I ever backed came straight out of college from NUST, and he was building an AI company in the audio space. So yes, at least in my instances, where it comes to certain platforms, it makes sense to back people that is purely on their technical skill sets. And obviously the exit there is that he was tackling an issue in terms of your text to speech that a few companies in the world were looking to acquire. For example, Alexa and many other players. So the idea was the exit was there. But in most instances, you need some level of scaling demonstration or a track record in the past, just to mitigate the risk for us as investors. And again, we invest early stage, but there are investors, angel investors, that will take a risk across the board.
Okay, thank you. Bill, your perspective. What are the sort of skills necessary for successful entrepreneurs? And I know you have some programs. The Leader in Me program, for example. Would this be a good time to talk about that?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Faisal was saying. I would add the word grit. And I think that goes along with resilience, which you mentioned. And I think young entrepreneurs, they need to understand failure, as you said. I think we need young people with vision. And I really think this current generation, these high school students and even below, they're brilliant. And they are technologically savvy. And I read somewhere that 40% of our current youth would like to start their own business. Very entrepreneurial minded. About 69% of them, this data said, even have an idea they would like to start. So one of the things I think we need to do to help them is give them an opportunity to learn those skills, to learn the leadership skills, which we do. That's what we try to do with schools. I think if they could find a cause, the current generation loves, they want to solve problems in the world, and they see the world with a lot of problems, and they want to find something that they can get behind. So I think something that really motivates them to change the world, those are the kind of, if I was a VC, I would be looking at that as well, maybe, and I think you probably are. But we teach leadership to students, and we try to give them an opportunity to practice that in the classroom and at the university level as well. We have a platform called Leader U that addresses the skills gap, what we call it, for the life skills in college students. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Dr. LaRock, you of course, entrepreneurship training is kind of your forte. Can you tell us a little bit about how you go about it? What sort of skills and attributes you feel are important for budding entrepreneurs, and what's your process of really teaching those skills? What is the process that you guys follow?
Yes, well, I very much agree with everything my fellow panelists have said. At the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, we've actually identified 8 critical skills that we believe are particularly important for young entrepreneurs. Some of them are things that we talk about all the time, such as critical thinking and communication and collaboration. But then other skills are things that we believe are particularly useful for entrepreneurs, such as flexibility and adaptability, comfort with risk, because being an entrepreneur is a risky proposition, initiative and self-reliance, future orientation, the ability to spot opportunities, and of course, as Bill just said, creativity and innovation. And I think the big insight that we try to bring to schools and educators is that these things can actually all be taught. Many people don't believe that something like creativity is something that can be developed, a skill that can be developed. Many people believe it's something inherent. You either have it or you don't. We don't believe that. We think, like any other skill, it's something that can be cultivated and nurtured. So when we work with young people in schools around the world, we teach their teachers and them to really lean into the development of those skills, believe that they can foster those skills and develop them over time, and then bring them together and apply them in the service of their emerging business.
Excellent. And the model you have, this is this an online program, or is it a physical program that you guys do?
It's both. It's typically a physical program, but it can be delivered online. Our organization provides the curriculum and the training for educators, and the educators then typically deliver the program as a formal class within the school day. And so what we've learned is that in order to truly cultivate these skills, it needs to be done rigorously and seriously. And so it's often not enough to have a short class or something outside of school. Really embedding it in school is the best way to do it. But of course, different people work in different settings, and so we offer our model flexibly to accommodate for those different circumstances as well.
Fantastic. And Bill, can you maybe walk us through, the Leader in Me program a little bit? How does it work? It seems like a huge part of what Franklin Covey does. And so what are some of the salient features, and how do you go about really bringing out those leadership qualities in students?
Well, the Leader in Me as a process is a school transformation model, and we focus on 3 areas: leadership, culture, and academics. So we help the teachers model and teach leadership skills to the students. And these are the life skills that we're talking about. When I say leadership, I mean those life skills. We also build a culture in the school of leadership, where children want to be there. The relationships between teachers, students, parents is very collaborative and positive. And we find that by focusing on those leadership skills and building that culture, there's a positive impact on academics. So we focus on the paradigms, how teachers see the students. We try to identify their genius, what they're good at, and then the teachers try to help them develop those specific talents and gifts that they're good at. We believe every child is a leader. And we treat them that way. And so we try to give them leadership opportunities. Every child in a Leader in Me school receives a leadership role, and they're responsible for leading some project or something, which is great for entrepreneurship. So we do this in schools. We have a great new feature I'll just mention. It's called Global Connect, and I think this is really relevant in education today because we're such a global society, and digital technology is bringing the world closer together. So we have a process where students in Leader in Me schools around the world can connect with other classrooms and other students around the world also studying leadership. And recently we had students from 8 countries collaborate, and they developed several service projects. Service learning is another great aspect that we need to probably embed more in education. And they did these service projects together to practice and demonstrate their leadership. So as was mentioned by the other panelists, you can teach these skills. What we try to focus on in Leader Me schools is to help them practice those skills
them.
and actually implement them and get that experience. And we're dealing with little children all the way through high school. So, yeah.
And is the program is it sort of a separate class that takes place? Do you need to make room for it in the schedule, or is it kind of embedded into the existing curriculum?
Yeah, the beauty of it is it's kind of like an operating system in the school. It's not a separate class, although we do have some supporting textbooks and curriculum that you can use to directly teach certain concepts. But the idea of the Leader in Me is we want to model for the students we expect from them. And so it's an inside-out approach. We focus on, we don't go in and teach the students directly ourselves. We empower the teachers to do that. And our focus is helping the teachers have a paradigm shift about what their role is. Teachers communicate the worth and potential of a child and help the child see that worth in themselves. And that's what really the Leader in Me is all about. So it's a ubiquitous process in the school. You don't have to have separate time. You need to have some upfront investment, a couple of days of training to launch it in your school. But after that, we'll coach the school, and it's an ongoing
And it works
process.
on top of whatever other curriculum you might have.
Oh, yeah.
IB,
We have IB
Cambridge,
schools,
yeah,
Cambridge
everything.
schools, Oxford, everyone. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Okay, so my next question is about digital assessments. There's been a lot of talk about digital assessments and how they can, they can help, assessments be more inclusive and to offer, children sort of equitable opportunities to, to really demonstrate their knowledge. So I was wondering, and I think predominantly targeted towards the educationists in the panel. Can you talk a little bit about how digital assessments? In fact, let me do this. I just realized that we haven't spoken to our AI avatar yet, so I'm going to put her on the spot right now and see how she does with this one. So, and then we can maybe get comments from you guys about what you think. So, Sarah. Can you let me know how you feel digital assessments have helped, assessments become more inclusive and equitable? And if you can give me 5 ways in which they've done that, that would be great.
Digital assessments have certainly made evaluations more flexible and accessible, allowing for personalized learning paths and immediate feedback. Would you like more specifics? Digital assessments allow for varied question types and personalized pacing. They can also include assistive technology for students with special needs. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Sarah, can you maybe tell me 2 other ways in which they can help in that respect?
Sure.
The network is down.
Digital assessments offer real-time progress tracking, and they reduce geographical barriers, enabling remote learning. Aren't these advancements fascinating?
Oh, they're completely fascinating. Faisal, what do you think? I mean,
So
yeah.
I think my fellow panelists are better.
Is she about to take over the planet anytime soon?
That may happen in 10 years. Let's see. We'll see. No, hopefully we'll work with AI to create a better world. Look, all I can say is that digital assessments, I always sucked at online assessments. So I don't think I'm the best person to comment on this. So I'll give it to my fellow panelists on this one.
Bill, so, I mean, what do you think about Sarah's response? And there's a lot of talk about digital assessments. What is your view?
Well, I think she's actually correct. It's made it accessible to a lot of people, but I think there are parts of the world, and probably here in Pakistan, where there's not necessarily all the access to the digital technology to allow them to take assessments, depending on the schools and where you're at. And certainly in certain parts of the world, that's the case. So my question back would be, How do we deal with those situations? We certainly, in what we do, we have digital assessments that we can use in the schools with the teachers and others, and it's powerful. I love the fact that you get immediate response. It can calculate it and respond, and you can do generative questions, right? Where because you ask one question, it then figures out through AI the next question what it should be. So they're powerful, powerful tools. I think we're going to use them more, and they're going to help us. But accessibility is always an issue in some parts of the world.
Yeah, no, true. Jesse, this is like right up your alley, really. In your capacity, can you tell us a little bit about what Cambridge University Press and Assessment is doing in the realm of digital assessments and how they're perhaps making assessments more equitable more equitable and accessible?
Absolutely. And I'd like to come back to what Sarah said as well, because I think she came up with some very clear responses, but they were also very generalized responses that she was speaking to. And she spoke about flexible and personalized, which is getting at kind of adaptive testing and progress monitoring. And I think those are things that we couldn't do on paper previously, because we can't use machine learning and AI in order to respond to student responses. And so I think it's important to reflect on some of the pieces that she's bringing forward. When she talks about varied item types, we have the opportunity to do more distinct item types, like interactive development environments, coding, and equation monitoring and modeling and things like that we couldn't previously do on paper. So I think there's really important things that we can bring forward in digital assessment that we couldn't previously do on paper that model some of the things that we're seeing in technology. Additionally, we have the opportunity to better measure how students engage with items. So I'll bring up multiple choice questions as an example, because that's a reasonably straightforward one. We know that coloring in bubbles is often really hard for students, that they make errors and they have trouble tracking and keeping track of where they're at or where they're going on the paper. In a digital setting, you can make the entire item clickable. So you remove a lot of that cognitive load for them as they're moving forward. So for Cambridge, we're looking kind of at all of the above. We're looking at progress monitoring. So how do you track the student's understanding of the content throughout the entire course? We're looking at kind of summative assessment options. So how do we better measure what we're teaching students? So I'll use computer science as an example. Computer science is almost always taught on a computer, but for many years, computer science has then been measured on a paper-based assessment, which is in line with what's being taught in the classroom. So how do we create an assessment that aligns with what's occurring in the teaching and learning environment? So that goes back to that integrated development environment that I talk about. So how do we test coding to align with what the teachers are preparing, what you all are preparing in the classroom? So that's a really big key for us. And then finally, it's the space of how do we support teachers in that personalized experience? So going back to what Sarah was saying, how do we support that teaching and learning cycle? How do you have the information and data that you need to drive that teaching and learning forward and improve the overall performance of students? So that's a big key of what we're trying to bring. And I think the other space, to go back to Bill's point, we're very aware of the equity piece. And the fact that we are in 160 countries, so we know that not all of the places that we're at are going to have the same level of access. So we have to make sure that we provide optionality. So what we're bringing forward digitally, we're looking to make sure that it is comparable to what we have on paper. And I think that that's going to be really important in understanding the equity gaps that we have relative to technology.
Fair enough. And also, because, we're talking about AI in this conference, do you think that quite soon we may see a time when AI can be used for marking papers, sort of like subjective question marking? I'm sure that's something you guys must be looking at.
Yeah, we're actually piloting AI marking for some of our formative assessments. So some of our progress monitoring, our classroom-based assessments that teachers could use to see how that moves and how that looks. And what we're doing is we're keeping a human in the loop. So fundamentally, we have the AI scoring and then an examiner checking to see how close it is to the examiner marking. But fundamentally, we think that that's going to be a really key part to both scaling and increasing the speed of releasing results out to teachers if we can bring that forward. As I said, the first place will be for it to come forward in kind of our progress monitoring and our classroom-based assessments. And then the next will be for it to start supporting our summative assessments.
Okay, fantastic. And Dr. LaRock, so you're working with underprivileged communities, and there's often been people have objected to the fact that at times assessments are designed in such a way that they're unfair to people that come from underprivileged communities. Do you find that in the realm of now digital assessments, we may see them becoming more equitable and balanced and more culturally sensitive and context sensitive?
Well, I think the issue of cultural sensitivity is a huge issue for any organization like ours, which is working globally. And it's not so much about assessments per se, but rather how questions are formed and whether the examples being used, the context, is relevant to the particular national context in which we might be working. As NIFTY's global work has expanded over the years, we certainly have found a greater need to adapt our assessments, both on paper and digitally, to be aligned with the particular cultural context in which we work, so that the assessments are valid and fair. But more broadly, on the theme of digital assessments, we use them in several contexts that my fellow panelists have already mentioned, as point-in-time assessments during the delivery of a class, as knowledge-based assessments pre and post course, so that students learning on hard measures of knowledge can be measured. And then we also have a situational assessment delivered digitally that actually aspires to measure the 8 domains of the entrepreneurial mindset that I was talking about earlier. So we believe that assessments can be used to measure progress along these domains, in addition to believing strongly that these creative domains and out-of-the-box domains can be taught as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so just going to swing back to the VC side of things for a second, Faisal here. So even though you've been speaking about I mean, we've all been speaking about the increasing use of 4G and cell phone penetration in Pakistan. You spoke about the tremendous opportunities available, but even now Pakistan's tech ecosystem is underfunded, I would say. I mean, there are I was just researching 110 tech unicorns in India, which are companies that are valued at $1 billion or above. I was pretty shocked to learn that. And I think there are none in Pakistan yet. So I'm wondering, why is that the case? What are the various reasons for that? Does some of it have to do with maybe the skill sets of our entrepreneurs? What are the other reasons? What can schools do to bridge that gap, in your opinion?
Sure. Yeah, so let's unpack that. There's a lot of layers within that.
Yeah.
So Pakistan and India, although it's the ultimate comparable, in terms of, for Pakistan, in terms of structures of bureaucracy.
So can you repeat that? The what?
Pakistan and India are the ultimate comparables, like good comparables,
Yeah.
in terms of the structure of society, bureaucracy, the former British colony and structures built by them in terms of civil society. But we also have to realize that there's a lag effect in terms of how adoption has taken place, and there's several factors in that. So I would say that Pakistan today, for example, economically, is going through what India went through in 1991, where their population grew significantly, and then suddenly it turned into a consumption-based economy.
You're saying there's a 30-year lag effect in your...
Only when it comes to population growth, like quantum effect, right? So they're 1.5 billion, we're roughly 250 million. We've reached that critical mass where now we have to, as a nation, retool ourselves and not be a consumption-based economy and fulfill some of those lagging effects by domestic production and augmenting. So those are structural issues. So there's that longer-term gap there. Now in technology, we actually have about a 7-year gap. And that 7-year gap exists primarily because of the launch of 3G and 4G. So in India and the rest of the region, 3G and 4G launched in roughly 2006 and 2010. In Pakistan, we did our first auction of a 3G and 4G license. We did actually simultaneously in 2013-14. So therefore, adoption actually started in 2015. And so if you zoom back to, let's say, 2017, you barely had 60 million data users in the country. Today, that number sits at somewhat above 100 million. Now, just out of 250 million people, 100 million ends up being a pretty significant quantum because it's bigger than, for example, like almost equivalent to the population of Egypt per se, right? So it's a huge opportunity. Now, and again, when I say there's a 7 to 10 year lag, so if you look at India, the quantum of growth in terms of unicorns started coming after the different layers of tech. So tech is moving along the same cycles of markets. So whether you look at what transpired in the last 10 years, when the S&P moves up, which is the US stock market, along with that, big tech in the US moves up, VC moves up, so do markets like crypto and real estate and multiple other markets. And then as there's a deflationary event, which is linked to US interest rates, as the US raises or cuts rates, you see those drops and gains. So in Pakistan's case, we're just in a cycle, maybe 3 cycles behind where India was. So we'll have our unicorns, and I don't think it's a skill set issue.
When money becomes cheap again.
Exactly. And my personal opinion, that's about to happen in April.
I don't think it's ever going to be as cheap as it was a couple of years
ago.
Not
not as cheap as 2021.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's coming in the next cycle, and we have to be prepared for it. But to answer your question,
and you think we're prepared for it? Are entrepreneurs skilled and competent enough now to attract that sort of foreign capital?
Absolutely. You have to think of it as an evolution. So out of 250 million people, we have enough talent. So Mudassir Sheikha, who is the co-founder of Kareem and the CEO, he's Pakistani. He built the platform in UAE, but that's a $3.1 billion company. Zameen, EMPG Group, is a $1.2 billion company. I looked at all this analysis in terms of capability. We have the same, Pakistan's a mini India. In terms of skill sets, the cream of the crop is already there. They will build the unicorns. We just will have a smaller quantum based on sheer size. And obviously there's some level of geopolitics and perception, which we have to rectify as well. So that'll play out as well.
Yeah. That small footnote at the end is quite important, actually.
Yes.
Thank you. No, that's great. I'm enthused to hear that you're so optimistic about the VC ecosystem and Pakistan, and of course you are. You're investing in it. I'm going to try to maybe make this the last question before we go to Q&A. If we have some questions, that is. But in a developing country context, I wonder, if we're talking about entrepreneurship training. We live in a country where baseline levels of numeracy and literacy are not achieved by students. And just teaching them basic math and teaching them to read and write in their own language and English, which is increasingly a very important language in Pakistan, that is very difficult. So is it realistic to assume that you can cover that basic knowledge gap while also teaching students entrepreneurship? Or should entrepreneurship training take a back seat and core fundamental numeracy, literacy, and knowledge skills be focused on? So maybe, Bill, you can lend us your perspective on that. Is it really possible to do both at the same time when the base level is so low?
Well, other than the technology piece, which is difficult in those developing areas, I think it is possible. I think that's what we're trying to do with schools, and I think some of the other panelists are focusing on the same thing. Because it's an integrated approach. If you consider learning to be an entrepreneur is learning how to lead your own life and inspire others and learn these 21st century skills, these life skills, then they certainly can be taught with your academics, because that's what we do in Leader in Me schools all around the world. So I think it's definitely something we can do and we need to do. I would say one of the best things I think for an entrepreneur, and it may not be possible in all of these developing countries, is for young people to find a mentor.
To find a what?
To find a mentor.
Yeah.
Their success rate will go. And I think, we need mentors for these young people. And so that's something that we as educators might be able to do. Yeah.
And Dr. Larocque, I mean, because you actually work with underprivileged communities, so I think you're well positioned to answer these questions. Is it how easy or difficult is it to balance the two?
Well, I would say that entrepreneurship is a very important way to teach literacy and numeracy. And let's think about it. In developing a business plan and developing a business pitch, you are actually helping students cultivate their literacy skills. In coming up with the financial aspects of a business plan, you are helping students develop their numeracy and mathematics skills. I think personally that entrepreneurship education often resonates with students who have trouble in traditional classroom settings where they are taught literacy and numeracy in more traditional ways. Entrepreneurship is something that starts with a student and his or her own passion, and therefore it's a really exciting and relevant platform for students to develop the skills that they need to bring out their own passion into the world. So we think entrepreneurship education is a really important way and a different way to develop literacy and numeracy. But I'd also like to second what Bill just said about mentorship. Mentorship is a huge component of what we do at the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And in our work around the world, both physically and digitally, we deploy volunteers from companies and volunteers from communities to serve as mentors. And that mentorship component is also a really important part of fostering a learning relationship between a young entrepreneur, a classroom, and the mentor. So I would like to just emphasize what has been said, because that is a key component and something that, frankly, we all entrepreneurs need.
Fantastic. I think let's move on to Q&A maybe. What are some tips for a 12-year-old to motivate him or her to start a business at this young age? Does anyone want to have a crack at that?
So I think we related to this question, what I'll say, especially because there's a lot of academics in the room, there's obviously people today that obviously they'll get motivated. Most young people today are able to think outside the box. They have access to our academic world, but they also have access to YouTube, and they're primarily online, and they're learning a lot of skill sets there. So I think one is to encourage entrepreneurs, potential entrepreneurs, is to hone in. If your children at home and teachers see there's a leaning towards entrepreneurship, reinforce it. That's the number one thing we can do today in the current education system. But as we evolve this education system, let's think about the 2030s. Gen Alpha is going to be an entirely different beast in terms of the way they're growing up. These kids were born with an iPad and a device. So their thought processes with platforms like Roblox are going to be very different. And I think their teachers and parents both have to figure out how to reinforce creativity and entrepreneurship from a young age. I mean, my two daughters already, one wants to be a YouTube star, and the other one wants to be something similar on TikTok and a filmmaker. And I'm encouraging it also. It's like they'll figure it out later on.
I mean, as a matter of fact, I would say that, they all want to already be entrepreneurs. They're doing entrepreneurship on Roblox already. They're doing their little businesses, and they've got their jobs going on. They're kind of in the metaverse, are already engaged in activities that we would never have been engaged in when we were that age. So I think that's there. Fantastic. Can we, there was a second question, which I think someone for no reason skipped. Yeah. I think, Dr. Jesse, maybe I will address this one to you. Can you provide successful examples of promoting inclusivity through digital assessments that can be replicated in Pakistan?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I would recommend that the teachers really kind of consider is something known as the universal design for learning principles. That can be a really effective way of how you look at accessibility, not just in digital assessment, but in assessment more broadly, as well as engaging with accessibility in the classroom. But I think some of the easy, more straightforward ones are things like text to speech that can be embedded within the platform. and used. I think that goes back to the question that we were having earlier around students that are struggling with reading and are having difficulty with that. That doesn't mean that they won't know the content. So how can you support them to answer questions directly around the content? So I think that is the next step for us. If we want them to truly be able to just answer a mathematics content, but we don't want them struggling directly with the reading piece, the text-to-speech can be a really strong ally for us. So I think that's a really good example that can be brought forward, and you can use that just with the Google Chrome browser. That's a setting that you can set up for your students on the Google Chrome as a teacher to be able to bring forward. So I think those are reasonably easy pieces for you to use. I think other things to consider in that space is with digital is to try to understand what it is that you're trying to measure and assess. And again, it goes back to if you're measuring reading, be sure that you're measuring reading within that space. If you're trying to measure something other than reading, try to limit the amount of reading that students are having to do and try to support that from an accessibility space. So that's where things like text-to-speech or speech-to-text can come into play to support. There's also other AI activities that you can do to really support students around understanding what the meaning is of AI and kind of using ChatGPT to get the sense of problem solving and other pieces that come forward. But I would really recommend, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I thought, please go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think that the Universal Design Learning Principles, it's CAS.org, really gives a good example of how to apply these in a direct fashion to both the classroom environment as well as the overall assessment design.
Is there an online resource where one can go and learn more about these universal design principles?
Yes, so CAS.org, and then Cambridge. If you go to Cambridge One, there's also quite a bit of information on there around how we've applied it to kind of all of our assessments, and then how we're learning and using it for our digital assessments as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So I will actually address our next question to Sarah, I think, and then we can take it from there. So Sarah, can you give me 3 ethical considerations that entrepreneurs should have when launching a new business?
Yes. How can I help you further?
Yes. Sorry, guys. Let's try that again.
Great. Please proceed with your next question, or how else I can assist you today.
Yes. Sarah, what ethical considerations should entrepreneurs keep in mind when starting or running their business?
Entrepreneurs should prioritize transparency, uphold data privacy, and ensure fair trade practices. Sustainability is also a key consideration. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Vessel, what's your opinion on that?
Also, agreed. It's spot on. I think especially in Pakistan, one of the things that we look for in entrepreneurs as well and startup founders is integrity. I think I'd put that at the top of one of the measurement skill sets that we do. KYC, try to get background checks done, speak to people they've previously worked with. So transparency, also upholding data privacy, and in general having a higher ethical compass is very important because you're building for the next generation. And for us, we're also trusting you with investor capital. So it's very important for us that things play out in a solid manner.
All right, fantastic. And is that our last question, possibly? How do policies of countries impact entrepreneurs? Would anyone like to lend their perspectives on this from from the countries that they've come from? What sort of policies, let's say, maybe reframe it, what kind of policies can the government have to promote entrepreneurship? Does anyone want to have a crack at that?
I could take a crack at that.
Sure.
Well, I'm coming to you from the U.S. right now, where, of course, we have a 50-state system. And I will tell you that state policies as well as national policies have a dramatic impact on how entrepreneurship education is facilitated. In states like Florida, for example, where leaders over time have made explicit decisions to invest in entrepreneurship education, to make space in the school day for such classes, and to actually tie it to a certification architecture where students can take entrepreneurship classes and take certification tests to have their mastery recognized. It's no surprise that in a regime like that, an organization like the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship is doing much, much more work. And there are key laws at the national level in the US and other nations, particularly having to do with facilitating career and technical education, of which entrepreneurship is a part. So, for example, in many schools, many countries around the world, it's quite common for there to be special funding to encourage people to be trained in a particular trade. Entrepreneurship can also be coupled in a policy way in schools like that, so that students are not only learning a trade or hands-on skill, but can utilize that skill not to be an employee of somebody else, but to be an entrepreneur, such as a mechanic or an HVAC repair person or an electrician. You can be those things, but you can be a person who owns a business doing those things. And that's where policy can come in to create space and funding for the entrepreneurship aspect to be coupled with that.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time. There are 20 seconds left there, but this has been a fascinating panel for me. I think I do truly personally believe that Pakistan is on the cusp of an explosion in entrepreneurship. And I do think that we're going to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of entrepreneurs and startups. I think we have all the right ingredients in place, and we shall see that soon, hopefully. And as far as educational institutions are concerned, like Beaconhouse, we're committed to working with, some of the leading experts and organizations in the world, working on entrepreneurship to provide whatever scaffolding we can, which is why we have these conferences. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for providing your tremendous insights to us. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to our audience for being part of this panel and attending. Thank you.